With a somber expression, Hagenko looks toward Kajura Kaikeru. She reflects that life is a game, and a poor one at that. It is this realization that has led her to a firm decision. She is removing him from the party. She states the reason plainly, her gaze unwavering. He simply can't keep up with their battles anymore. The two of them stand apart on a paved overlook, the sprawling cityscape behind them a silent witness to the tense confrontation. Breaking the silence, she asks if he can hear her, addressing him by name, Kaikeru. Her status is clear. Hagenko, the level 254 Valkyrie and leader of the Holy Sword Party. He looks back at her, his own expression unreadable. His own affiliation is with the same group, but the disparity is stark. He is Kajura Kaikeru, a trap master, a mere level 75. He finally speaks, not of the present, but of the past. He was just remembering when he first arrived in Tokyo, recalling how the four of them, as shown in a brief memory, climbed the ranks together right away. He continues, explaining that back then, he expected Tokyo to be a place crawling with monsters. Instead, it was just another big city where people and fortune gathered. Looking at the city before them, he murmurs that he understands now. Ko cuts through his reminiscence, her tone firm. She states that this was her personal decision, and that she has not yet told the other two party members about it. The word echoes in his mind, expulsion. He internally acknowledges that while a leader has the right to expel anyone, doing so typically tarnishes a party's reputation. His gaze falls. With a quiet apology, he admits that he should have been the one to bring the topic up, his sentence trailing off into a defeated silence. He remains silent as Ko continues their conversation, acknowledging his stubborn refusal to give up, a trait she says he's had since they were children. She then instructs him that he needs to handle the paperwork for his departure. She offers a practical solution for the trouble he's caused, explaining that a quarter of the party's common assets can be transferred to his account for him to equip his own replacement. He immediately rejects the offer, stating firmly that he doesn't want it. With the business concluded, a quiet finality hangs in the air. He looks at her, managing a faint smile as he says it's been fun, and bids her, goodbye, Ko. Her expression is equally somber as she reciprocates. Goodbye, Kaikeru. He turns and walks away, the distance between them growing. As he goes, he admits to himself that he already knew this was coming. Their last few dungeon expeditions had felt like suicide missions. The memory of that danger is vivid, a desperate battle where he was nearly killed. He realizes with chilling certainty that if his comrades hadn't all intervened to save him, even a glancing blow would have been fatal. The fear of leaving his friends behind had paralyzed him, preventing him from making the decision to leave on his own terms. Now walking alone down a desolate street, he reflects on a harsh reality that has defined him. From the moment he was born to the day he entered his first dungeon, people have always pointed out the inherent difference in their talent. And yet, he pauses, looking up at the darkening sky. A single, wistful thought surfaces. He had only wanted to stay with them for a little while longer, but that wish was not to be fulfilled. With his solitary figure receding into the distance, the record is set. Kajura Kaikeru was officially expelled from the Holy Sword Party. News of his dismissal spreads with surprising speed. As he passes through a public space, he overhears the hushed gossip of onlookers. They comment that it took long enough for him to be sacked, and that it was always a mystery how someone like him ended up in Holy Sword in the first place. The whispers continue to follow him, confirming his own insecurities. He hears them say it's no wonder he was just dragging the geniuses down. They openly mock his job class, trap master, questioning what kind of profession that could possibly be. He is so lost in his thoughts that he bumps into a young woman on the street. She quickly apologizes, but he realizes she must be an adventurer, so strong that she barely noticed the collision. Continuing on his way, he looks up at the sky, reflecting that it has been 40 years since the holes first opened. He wonders what happens if someone falls behind in this new world. Indeed, a dark, crackling portal hangs in the sky over Tokyo. It was with the appearance of these holes that some people awakened special abilities, becoming the first to be called adventurers. Later, while riding a train, an in-car broadcast begins. It announces a special report on the future of humanity in dungeons, focusing on Japan's most celebrated party, Holy Sword, which has just become the first in the nation to conquer 300 dungeons. He glances out the window, his attention captured not by the news, but by the massive portal looming in the distance. Tokyo's Origin Gate, one of the 7 legendary first dungeons yet to be cleared. He acknowledges the high expectations, but dismisses it as none of his concern, until he notices something unusual. Within the dark energy of the gate, several small, light-toned objects are being expelled from its core. Then, a colossal, pale hand with strange, circular markings tears through the portal, its long claws reaching out from the void. The sight shocks him to his core. He looks around frantically, wondering if anyone else can see the monstrous appendage plummeting towards them. Beside him, a man in a suit stares out with a grim expression as the hand descends. With terrifying speed, the hand smashes directly into the train car. The sound of shattering glass and twisting metal fills the air as a passenger screams for everyone to run. The impact leaves the interior of the car in a state of complete ruin, a chaotic mess of debris and wreckage. Amidst the twisted metal and shattered glass, Kajura Kaikeru coughs up blood, his body racked with pain. His mind races, replaying the image of the colossal hand. He questions in disbelief if that thing, that impossible attack, truly came from the origin gate. As he looks toward the sky, he realizes with a start that the monstrous appendage has vanished without a trace from above the ruined city. He collapses to the ground, the last of his strength gone. A desperate thought surfaces. He needs to warn the girls before anyone else gets hurt. But the memory of his former comrades only brings a fresh wave of despair. He wonders why he couldn't keep up, lamenting that if he was fated to die, he wished he could have at least stayed with them until the end. As tears of regret stream down his face, a curious voice cuts through his misery. Oh ho! Before him stands the mysterious woman, her star-like eyes gazing down at his broken form. Amidst the rubble, a mysterious woman with flowing white hair and a dress of dark tendrils looks down upon the fallen Kajura Kaikeru. She remarks on his unsightly state for a chosen one, but muses that his ability to perceive her must be a sign of fate. He lay motionless on the cracked earth, barely conscious from his ordeal. From his position on the ground, he weakly manages to ask who she is. The woman offers no simple answer, suggesting she could be a demon, or perhaps even his god, before cryptically stating, "Let's see." Her gaze intensifies, her unique, star-like pupils seeming to pierce through him as she poses a question, asking if there is something he wants. With her cryptic offer hanging in the air, she declares it is time to begin. Her shadowy tendrils lift Kaikeru's limp body from the ground, drawing him towards her. She then leans down and presses her lips against his in a sudden, silent kiss. The contact sends a jolt through him. He stumbles backward, clutching his chest as an unknown energy surges within him. He collapses to his knees, a faint, pained smile forming on his lips as the power settles within him. Looking up, Kaikeru finds that the woman has vanished. He realizes with a start that it wasn't a dream. His wounds are completely healed. Her voice echoes in his mind, telling him she has given him power and has no expectations. He is now free to live as he pleases. Still processing the impossible event, he struggles to his feet. In the distance, Reize Agino and another adventurer rush toward him, calling out to see if he is all right. He looks up, his gaze fixed on the source of a loud, cracking sound from above. The structure is beginning to give way. As Reize Agino cries out a warning about the collapsing ceiling, he frantically searches for a solution. A system display materializes, listing his available traps, but he knows he needs something more, something different. His frantic search reveals an unexpected option on the display, arrow symbol. He stares at the unfamiliar words, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. The sight of it triggers a vivid memory of the mysterious woman, her otherworldly eyes, and her promise. "I've given you power." He understands instantly. This is a unique skill, a gift from her, displayed in a way he's never seen. Before he can fully grasp the implication, Reize Agino shouts that there's no time to hesitate. She slams her hand to the ground, activating her own trap, arrow symbol. A glowing sigil with a large arrow materializes as she pushes him down, yelling for him to take cover. From the ground, he watches as massive slabs of the structure plummet directly towards them, a cascade of concrete and steel. But instead of crushing them, the debris strikes an invisible barrier and is violently shunted aside, following the direction of the glowing arrow. He stares in awe, realizing the trap's true nature. It manipulates the very movement of objects. Sometime later, the bald official discusses the incident with a colleague. The colleague expresses skepticism, arguing that if a giant arm had truly emerged from the origin gate as claimed, the entire city would have been in chaos, yet there were no other witnesses. He then turns to Kaikeru, stating that while he will keep the report in mind, Kaikeru is no longer a member of Holy Sword and should leave the investigation to those who are. Walking away, he concludes that his words were not believed. He questions what could even be done against such a threat, and with a new resolve, he changes his mind about standing down. He decides to go to a forest near Tokyo. In that moment, a strange, gear-like pattern flashes within his eye, mirroring the one he saw in the mysterious woman. He stood in the forest, facing a beast. His resolve hardened as he thought of the Holy Sword party and their mission to conquer the Origin Gate. If this new power could help them, then he would use it. He would prove he could stand beside them again. The creature, a rank D monster identified as a melon board, glared back. It was a test. He had to see if he truly had what it took to stand beside them once more. With a shout of "Trap set," he slammed his hand on the ground, activating trap. But the boar was too quick, leaping over the snare and slashing the earth. He grimaced, realizing it wouldn't be fooled so easily. He broke into a run, the fundamental weakness of his class echoing in his mind. Trap masters couldn't attack on their own. They could only gain experience by making monsters fall for their traps. This limitation was precisely why they were considered so weak. Facing the charging beast once more, he set another trap, stealing himself. He had faced plenty of enemies like this before. If he stayed calm, he could predict its movements. But this time was different. As the melon board closed in, he unleashed the arrow symbol. A glowing sigil materialized in the air, and with a great whoosh, the monster was seized by an unseen force, its body sent hurtling sideways. The boar was flung directly into the waiting trap, which erupted in a violent blast of energy, obliterating the creature. Kaikeru watched the aftermath, his eyes wide with the result. He paused, catching his breath. He was still weak, still unused to fighting at close range. But a new understanding dawned. As long as he could touch a monster, he could now force it into his traps. A hand went to his face, wiping away sweat. His weakness didn't matter anymore. But so what, he thought, his expression hardening. He stood tall, clenching his fist in triumph. He had finally gotten it, the power he had always wanted so desperately. Elsewhere, the paladin Reize Agino was locked in a desperate struggle. Gritting her teeth against the immense strain, she fought with a singular, burning thought, a desire to become even stronger. Her focus was shattered by the desperate cries of the men she was protecting. They pleaded for their Oju-sama to abandon them and escape with her life. But their pleas only fueled her frustration. She roared at them to be silent, claiming their words were a distraction from the overwhelming battle against a horde of monsters. A massive horde of goblin-like monsters swarms toward the cave entrance. Inside, the paladin, Reize Agino, braces her shield against a powerful impact. The two workers she is protecting cry out, urging their Oju-sama to leave them behind and escape. She grits her teeth, ignoring their pleas. She acknowledges their words, but knows she cannot abandon them. Her expression hardening with resolve as she faces the overwhelming number of foes. Elsewhere, Kujira Kaikeru is enveloped in a soft glow of light. He realizes with a start that he has leveled up. It has been a while since he managed such a feat on his own, and he reflects that he had been relying on others for too long. He continues on his path, but stops short, hearing a faint noise. He mutters to himself, realizing he shouldn't stray too far from his designated area. The metallic cling of a weapon echoes again through the trees. The sound draws his attention. It is a known fact that ever since the first gates appeared in the world, monsters from certain gates have slowly begun to invade the surrounding lands. His eyes lock onto a dark cave entrance nestled in the hillside, identifying it as the source of the disturbance. He approaches cautiously, finding it strange. He had thought this area was unmonitored. From within the cave's maw, the sounds of battle, clashing steel, grow louder. Someone is fighting in there. Crouching behind a tree, he listens intently. The sounds are only of weapons striking shields, leading him to conclude that whoever is in there is in trouble and completely on the defensive. He considers contacting the association, but hesitates, knowing he has no information on the number or strength of the enemies. They could be far stronger than the monster he just defeated. He wrestles with the decision. Reinforcements are surely on their way, so the logical choice would be to stay put and wait. But he immediately dismisses the thought of inaction. Running away is not the choice that would reunite him with his former comrades. Though he regrets not wearing his heavy armor and has no idea how powerful the monsters are, he steels his resolve. He must go. He wastes no time upon entering the cave, immediately setting a trap at the entrance before pressing deeper into the fray. Inside, the paladin Reize Agino desperately holds her ground, her shield deflecting the frenzied attacks of numerous goblin-like monsters. Her defense is shattered by a heavy thud as a massive ogre brings its club down on her shield, the force of the blow staggering her as one of the workers she's protecting cries out her name in horror. The hulking monster looms over her, and she squeezes her eyes shut, bracing for the worst as her strength fails. Knocked to the cavern floor, she is left completely vulnerable as the horde of smaller monsters closes in around her. Just as they are about to strike, a dark-clad figure appears before her. It is Kujira, who calmly asks if she minds if he helps. The paladin can only stare, stunned by his sudden arrival, his impressive speed, and his first-class equipment. He clarifies that he is not part of an official rescue force, but was simply leveling up nearby and won't claim any reward except for experience points. Seeing no other option, she desperately asks if he will truly help her. His gaze shifts past her to the terrified workers huddled behind. He understands now. She has been protecting these civilians all on her own. To coordinate their efforts, Kujira asks for her name and job. She introduces herself as Reize Agino, a paladin, and asks for his details in return. He replies that his name is Kujira Kaikeru and suggests that he leave the offense to her. Her eyes widen in disbelief as he answers her final question. He is a trap master. Her shock was interrupted as Kujira sprang into action, shouting for her to wait. He declared that he would handle the attacks while she protected the two men. As he engaged the small monsters, he noted that they were not going down as easily as before now that they weren't caught off guard. He found himself surrounded, realizing that luring the creatures into his traps one by one would not be enough. He needed a new technique, a wide, area of effect attack. Though he didn't know why, he felt a strange certainty that he could do it and began to set a new trap, an arrow symbol. He invoked a new skill, trap fusion. A complex, magical sigil materialized on the cavern floor beneath him, glowing ominously as dark energy began to slash outwards. The resulting attack, arrow symbol slash, erupted from the sigil. Massive, intersecting blades of pure darkness tore through the chamber, instantly striking down the entire horde of monsters. In the aftermath, the cave floor was littered with the bodies of the fallen creatures. Reize Agino stared from a distance, her expression one of complete astonishment at the sight of the glowing trap symbol in the center of the devastation. Her disbelief was palpable. She approached Kajura, asking if he was a wizard. He calmly denied it, reiterating that he was a trap master. The paladin exclaimed that it was impossible. She had never heard of a trap master capable of such an attack. As he walked toward her and the workers, he simply asked if they were all right. He then turned to the two rescued men, advising them that they needed to leave and asking if they could run. One of the workers confirmed that Kajura had saved them. Internally, Kajura reflected that he had just tried the skill for the very first time, and it had worked. Their brief respite was shattered by a heavy, rhythmic stomping that echoed from deeper within the cave. Kajura's expression hardened. He knew what this meant. As Reize asked what was wrong, he began to explain that his experience taught him that after fighting a large group like this, a boss appears. His words hung in the air as a hulking figure emerged from the darkness. A mighty ogre, armed with a massive club, had arrived. He stared up at the new foe, a creature clearly far stronger than he was. Doubt crept into his mind as he questioned if his traps would even work against such an opponent, and whether he should even try to fight it. He pushes past his apprehension, turning to Reize and firmly instructing her to get the civilians as far away as possible. The paladin is taken aback by his sudden command. With his companion beginning to retreat with the others, he turns his full attention to the towering monster. Drawing his short sword, he defiantly challenges the ogre to come at him. The beast lets out a guttural roar as it advances. He grips his weapon, understanding that this battle will be his real test. A thought crosses his mind. If trap masters confuse traps, then he might have a way forward. He begins to set a trap. He completes the incantation, unleashing his arrow symbol X2 trap. With a shout, he sends two massive, magical arrows hurtling towards the enemy. The magical projectiles find their mark, striking the ogre squarely in the chest and abdomen. The monster bellows in agony as the force of the impact throws it off balance. As the beast reels, he assesses the situation. He acknowledges that his magical daggers aren't particularly strong, but they will inflict damage. With his own defenses being paper-thin, he concludes he must attack from outside the ogre's range and slowly wear it down. He prepares to execute this strategy, cautiously circling the enraged and wounded ogre. Meanwhile, at a safer distance, Reize turns back towards the battle. She tells the workers that help should be arriving soon and instructs them to show the reinforcements the way, declaring that she must go back to help him. She prepares to rejoin the fight. Back in the fray, the ogre retaliates with surprising speed, hurling its massive club. The projectile closes the distance in an instant, and he realizes with dawning horror that he cannot dodge it. The club smashes into the ground directly before him. The ogre bellows, mocking him for letting go of his weapon. But this was a calculated move. Already kneeling, he places his hand on the ground to set a new trap, combining an arrow symbol with a fire element. He slams his hand to the ground, unleashing the full force of his combined traps. A torrent of magical energy erupts, swirling with symbols of power and flame as it surges toward the massive ogre. The resulting explosion engulfs the monster in a blinding inferno. Watching from a distance, Reize can only stare in disbelief, realizing he possesses the speed of a rogue and the devastating firepower of a wizard. Her gaze remains fixed on the man standing amidst the scorched earth. A profound thought solidifies in her mind. This man, Kajura, will fundamentally change the way adventurers see the world. Kajura Kaikeru finds himself inside the Kanazawa branch of Reize, Japan's largest adventure gear brand. Surrounded by displays of high-end equipment, he mutters the company's name, looking slightly overwhelmed by the prestigious setting. His thoughts are interrupted by the sight of Reize Agino. He recognizes her name, but is stunned to learn she is not only the president's daughter, but also the head of the entire Hakuriku branch. A memory of a glowing item he once used surfaces as she approaches and thanks him for his business. Now seated across from her at a table, Kaikeru watches as she pours tea. He questions why a branch chief would personally handle bodyguard duty. Agino dismisses his concern, stating that all's well that ends well, but notes that the monsters they encountered were far more dangerous than their intelligence report suggested. She continues, expressing genuine gratitude for his help. She explains that she felt she had to take on the role herself, especially since she had sent her subordinates into a dangerous situation. Agino admits that because she only got her position through family connections, she needed to prove herself. Kaikeru understands, realizing she must have constantly faced accusations of nepotism. He listens intently as she pivots the conversation. Agino clarifies that gratitude wasn't the only reason for their meeting and proposes they discuss business. With a direct gaze, she then makes her offer. She wants Kaikeru to sign a sponsorship contract with her. Kaikeru is taken aback by the proposal. He questions her reasoning, pointing out that he has no public relations value and wouldn't be a good face for a poster. He assumes she simply means to support him, but she quickly corrects him, stating that is not what she meant. Agino pauses, her expression serious. She then lays out her true expectation for him, to become the strongest there is. Her words strike a chord within him. He processes her statement as an investment, a belief that he will pay off in the future. Yet, he is filled with doubt, thinking she must want a top-tier adventurer, not someone like him who was just expelled from his party. Agino asks him why he was expelled. He answers plainly, because I was too weak. After a moment of consideration, she delivers a sharp rebuke not to him, but to his former comrades. In that case, they must be blind. Despite her supportive intent, Kaikeru's expression tightens. He looks down, his voice strained as he insists she not badmouth his former comrades. He quickly softens, acknowledging that he knew she was only trying to cheer him up. He then apologizes, stating that it wasn't his place to say anything, while Agino listens quietly. She looks up from her tea with a gentle but firm expression. She reassures him that she doesn't mind that he was expelled, so long as he didn't commit a crime, and adds that she also doesn't mind if he isn't particularly strong. He looks up, taken aback by her unconditional faith. He begins to speak, his voice filled with a dawning realization. His thought trails off as he finds his resolve, declaring his intention to become stronger. Looking out over the city, he solidifies his vow. He will grow stronger, not just physically, but mentally as well. With his decision made, he stands and faces Agino. He formally accepts the contract. As the deal is struck, Agino casually asks which party he used to belong to. Her question is answered, and her composure shatters. Standing on a balcony overlooking the city, she lets out a cry of pure shock, having just learned he was a member of the Holy Sword. Meanwhile, in a distant, desolate location, the mysterious woman with long, light hair sits atop the massive, skeletal remains of a defeated beast, quietly uttering Kaikeru's name. She remains perched on the colossal skull of the gate monster, surrounded by drifting particles of light, and wonders aloud if he is doing all right. Elsewhere, within the Holy Sword Party, two members, Itomi Kukuri and Ashitari Yukiko, discuss a recent event. Kukuri agrees with Yukiko, stating that they couldn't continue exposing Kujura to danger because of their own selfish desires, and Yukiko affirms that the decision was for the best. As they talk, Hagane Ko stands apart from them, her back turned as she gazes at a traditional gate. Seeing her friend's somber posture, Yukiko gently tells her not to beat herself up over it. Kukuri playfully adds that Ko is always so serious. Ko, however, turns her head slightly, her expression firm as she states that she doesn't want forgiveness, as she was the one who cut off Kaikeru's life as an adventurer. The statement prompts a blunt question from Kukuri. Did Ko propose to him as she fired him? Kukuri continues, suggesting that if Ko hadn't tried to smooth things over and had instead confessed her feelings directly, saying something like, I wouldn't be able to live if you died, the outcome might have been unexpectedly positive. She internally laments that Ko is the frustrating type of woman who hopes a man will simply notice her feelings on his own, without her ever having to voice them. Flustered, Ko insists there was no way she could do that. Yukiko laughs at the exchange, and Kukuri points out that it was a perfect opportunity to connect with him, but Ko put the cart before the horse. She wonders aloud how things ended up this way, with no one confessing their feelings. Kukuri's tone becomes more serious, as she warns Ko that while the separation feels recent, time will pass, things will happen, and soon they will find themselves far apart. Their conversation is interrupted by another party member, who approaches to ask Ko about a rumor regarding plans to take on the Origin Gate. Ko's expression hardens as she confirms the rumor. She explains that it is a plan to conquer the Origin Gate, information that was recently shared only with the leaders of the top-ranking parties. She listens as her companions discuss the upcoming mission. They explain that an election test will be held in the fall, specifically December of this year. If a party is deemed powerful enough to join the effort, their participation will be publicly announced. As Hagane Ko processes this, her companion, Itomi Kukuri, calls her name, drawing her full attention. With a serious expression, Kukuri then makes a startling proposal that they should all quit being adventurers after they conquer the Origin Gate. She continues, revealing her personal motivation with unwavering resolve. After their final mission, she intends to take Kaikeru and move with him to a country that permits polygamy. Stunned by the declaration, Ko can only ask what on earth she is talking about, her own feelings thrown into turmoil. Meanwhile, far from that conversation, Kujura Kaikeru arrives at a new location. He stands before a traditional-style building cordoned off by keep-out tape, a woman in a maid's uniform by his side. He murmurs to himself, confirming that this is the dungeon. The maid affirms his location and introduces herself as Toga Natsum, the one in charge of the site. She explains that Lady Aquino has transferred the rights to this dungeon to him. Kaikeru internally reflects that while he did ask for a low-ranked dungeon, he hadn't expected it to come with its own inspector. Natsum clarifies that she is only present for observation and will not be able to help him inside. Acknowledging her role, Kaikeru readies himself to enter as she wishes him good luck. Once inside, he wastes no time. With a flash of movement, he cuts down several small monsters, using the opportunity to confirm the range and cooldown of his abilities. He decides that after this initial test, he will dedicate himself fully to combat practice. He presses forward, soon arriving before a large, ornate door. He pauses, realizing he has never entered a boss room alone before. A thought crystallizes in his mind. If he can master the arrow symbol to strengthen himself, he might just be able to fight on par with a dedicated fighter type. He stood before the dungeon's final guardian, a rank B goblin general. The faces of Ko, Yukiko, and Kukuri flashed through his mind. He had wanted to ask them to wait for him, but now he resolved that he would be the one to catch up to them instead. The general lunged, its weapon crashing against the ground as Kaikeru deftly weaved around the attack. He moved with fluid precision, evading a flurry of strikes that cracked the very stone beneath them. He analyzed the creature's movements, realizing he needed to get closer and find a way to crush its formidable armor in a single, decisive hit. The opportunity had not yet presented itself. In response to his evasiveness, the goblin general stomped its foot, causing a forest of sharp spikes to erupt from the floor, blanketing the area in a deadly trap. Leaping high into the air to avoid the spikes, he understood the monster strategy. The entire room was its weapon. He couldn't get close at all. Below, the general prepared to strike again. Just as the monster began its next move, he shouted for his trap to activate. A glowing sigil materialized beneath the goblin general, ensnaring it completely. With the beast immobilized, he declared his turn had come. Channeling power through his blade, he unleashed the arrow symbol plus slash, cleaving the goblin general in two. The monster disintegrated, leaving behind a single drop, a ring. He identified it as a fire trap. He considered that while he could use it, he would give it to Reize instead. He stepped out of the dungeon, the entrance now cordoned off. Itomi Kukuri and Toga Natsum were there waiting. With a bright, welcoming smile, Kukuri cried out, overjoyed that he had finally emerged. Within the dungeon, Kajura Kaikeru stands cloaked as the last remnants of a defeated foe dissolve into particles. He notes the appearance of a dropped item on the ground. He picks up the item, a ring. He considers that it might not be entirely useless, as it possesses a fire trap enchantment. Still, it's a minor gain, and he briefly thinks of giving it to someone named Reize. Contemplating his progress, he acknowledges that while the advancement is slow, he is definitely leveling up. He turns, ready to exit the dungeon. Just as he emerges, a cheerful voice cries out. A young woman with long dark hair appears suddenly before him, exclaiming with delight that he is finally out. Behind her, Toga Natsum watches the scene unfold. The girl's eyes sparkle with excitement as she gazes at his new cloak, calling it pretty. She wonders if it's a rare piece of dropped gear, mentioning that she's never seen anything like it in shops and that it suits him very well. She continues chattering, admitting her curiosity about the people who enter the dungeon. As she speaks, Toga Natsum approaches Kaikeru, explaining with a sigh that she had informed the girl it was a private dungeon, but her warning was ignored. Kaikeru can only stare, bewildered. Ignoring the exchange, the girl brightly introduces herself as Tsukage Tsukasa, adding that she is 14 years old. Kaikeru silently registers that this energetic girl is an adventurer. Tsukasa then steps closer, holding up a device to trade contact information and commenting that he looks super strong. He observes her, thinking to himself that she must be new, as it's rare to see an adventurer so young in Tokyo. His expression shifts to one of stern disapproval. He chides her for her lack of caution, warning her not to give out personal information like her class, an assassin, so freely, especially outside of formal raid. He reminds her that they are complete strangers, but she proudly declares her rank is B. Her bravado vanishes in an instant. With a desperate plea, she explains that she needs a partner for dungeon exploration. To prove her worth, she presents her adventurer card, which clearly displays rank B. Kaikeru stares, stunned by the revelation that this 14-year-old girl is ranked higher than him. He listened as Tsukasa explained her predicament. She had adventurer classmates and friends, but they refused to accompany her, claiming the places she wished to explore were far too dangerous. Kaikeru asked why she couldn't simply go solo. With a sad smile, she confessed that being alone was lonely. Her melancholy vanished in an instant, replaced by a jubilant cheer. Taking his questions as acceptance, she celebrated. He quickly tempered her excitement, stating he was busy and she shouldn't call him constantly, flicking his contact card towards her. As she caught the card, she called out, confirming his identity, Trap Master. He turned back to see her beaming, thrilled at the prospect of exploring with someone like him for the first time. She waved a final goodbye, promising to message him later before dashing away. As he watched her go, he thought to himself that she was like a storm, unseen by him. Reize Agino observed their exchange from a distance. Sometime later, Kaikeru arrived back at a modern, high-rise residence. Toga Natsum greeted him at the entrance, welcoming him back. He mused internally that he would be meeting more adventurers now, and that it was a good thing he wasn't well known outside of Tokyo. Inside, Toga asked about his dungeon excursion. He reported that he seemed capable of handling a slightly higher-ranked challenge. Pleased, she responded that it was great news and that she would prepare the next one for him. He then took out the ring he had acquired. Holding it out towards Toga, he spoke, Reize, would you take this? A moment of confusion crossed his face as he seemed to realize his own mistake. Toga froze, completely stunned by his words. Her eyes widened in shock, a deep blush spreading across her cheeks as she stared at the offered ring. The awkward silence stretched between them. He remained still with a neutral expression, while her face was a portrait of flustered surprise. Her face flushes, and with eyes squeezed shut, she hesitantly addresses Kaikeru, asking what he believes the significance is when a man gives a woman a ring. In response to her pointed question, he quickly apologizes, insisting he meant nothing by the gesture. He explains that the ring was simply a drop from that day's dungeon, something he only viewed as equipment. He continues his explanation, though he internally reflects that the dungeon run felt like a significant first step for him. Toga listens, her expression unreadable. His thoughts drift to a memory of Ray's. He recalls telling her a similar item was for a sponsor, but his true desire was to share it with her as a memento. Back in the present, Toga's face falls with quiet resignation. She realizes that, in the end, nothing has truly changed. A sudden, dawning horror strikes Kaikeru as he remembers placing the ring on her left ring finger. He can only offer another weak apology. Later that night, alone in his room, his attention turns to a card he holds. It bears the name Tsukigase, reminding him of the young assassin he met earlier. As he sits on his bed, his phone rings. He answers with irritation, questioning the call since he had stated he was busy. On the other end, Itomi Kikuri complains that she couldn't reach him all day before eagerly asking him to join a temporary party for the following day. He listens as she elaborates. An acquaintance of hers is forming a team, and all the members will be around his rank. She enthusiastically suggests they go together. Kaikeru contemplates the offer, acknowledging that clearing a dungeon with a group is ideal, but feels wary about teaming up with strangers. The thought of a party conjures haunting, spectral images of his former teammates, their glowing silhouettes surrounding him as he sits alone in the dark. He remains lost in thought, the memory of joining his former party surfacing. In the recollection, Tsukasa pleads with him, insisting she wants to go with him. She dismisses his concerns, arguing that the leader seemed nice. He, however, tries to dissuade her, stating that she should go alone because his presence would likely get them rejected. Despite his reluctance, he eventually concedes with a condition. He tells Tsukasa that if the leader approves, he will join, and they agree to meet the next day. Her face lights up with joy. She thanks him profusely, unable to contain her excitement. The memory shifts to the meeting. A large, boisterous man with a wide grin roars with enthusiasm, confirming Kaikeru's acceptance of the party with a single, booming phrase. "You're in." Following the leader's immediate approval, another member of the group remarks that an introduction from Tsukigase is good enough for them. Still unconvinced, Kaikeru voices his biggest concern, asking if it's truly fine even though he's a trap master. His question makes Tsukasa visibly anxious. The leader, however, loudly dismisses this worry. He bellows that being a trap master doesn't matter at their current rank. He adds that things might be different in a major hub like Tokyo, but for now, it's not an issue. With his fears assuaged, Tsukasa turns to him with a reassuring smile. She points out that they seem like good people and tells him not to worry. She then adds that he seems like an honest person, which she considers the most important trait for trusting someone inside a dungeon. Kaikeru quietly agrees. The new party is now formed and brimming with energy. Tsukasa raises her arm and cheers for them to raid the dungeon, and the leader enthusiastically agrees, urging everyone forward. As the memory of their unified cheer plays out, his perspective narrows, focusing on that moment before the memory itself begins to fade into a point of white light. The vision shatters, and he is back in the present, walking away from the ghostly image of his past. The world of the memory dissolves around him as he moves forward, clad in his dark cloak. He stops, a sudden, unsettling feeling washing over him. He mutters to himself, questioning the sensation, as the faces of his former teammates, the very ones from the memory, loom in his mind. He remembers the chaos of the fight. The party's boisterous leader shouts orders, directing a charging, boar-like monster towards him while telling Tsukasa to hold her position. As the battle unfolds, he marvels at his companion's strength, especially Tsukasa's. Her speed is remarkable, but it's her complete control and lack of wasted movement at such a young age that convinces him she is destined to become a top-tier adventurer. Amidst his thoughts, she calls out, telling him to set the trap, but he is already a step ahead, calmly stating that it's done. A monster is instantly impaled on spikes that erupt from the ground. The party member with glasses looks on, impressed, and offers a simple, not bad. With the fight proceeding smoothly, Tsukasa cheers for the next encounter. The older member's just about needing a rest, but Kaikeru remains unsettled. He questions if the strange feeling he'd had earlier was just his imagination. The party ventures deeper into the woods. Tsukasa observes that they've made good progress and that the boss room should be nearby. Her observation seems to give the leader pause. He stops, a thoughtful expression on his face as he murmurs to himself. A tense silence hangs in the air, broken by a low, chilling voice affirming that it is indeed about time for that. The memory abruptly sours. The party leader's friendly facade vanishes as he violently grabs Tsukasa, who gasps in terror. He glares at Kaikeru, warning him not to interfere and sneering that even a high-ranked assassin is just a scrawny punk once caught. The hostile act triggers a realization. Kaikeru finally understands the source of his unease, the sound of their gear. It's the distinct resonance of high-rank equipment, a sound he's heard many times before. He confronts the man, accusing him of disguising his gear to appear low rank. As he makes his accusation, the other two men move to flank their leader, their weapons ready. With his suspicions confirmed by their actions, Kaikeru looks at the three of them and makes his final declaration. They're not adventurers, but bandits. He remains silent as Tsukasa, held captive, processes the betrayal. She realizes they were bandits all along, their movements and high-rank gear betraying their claimed C-rank status. They had been lured in, the true targets from start. Her voice trembles with disbelief, unable to comprehend how they could have been so kind. The party leader scoffs, explaining that their disguised gear made her lower her guard. The man with glasses adds that a trap master is useless to them anyway. The leader tightens his grip on Tsukasa, his face twisting with contempt. He roars that no one would team up with someone who lacks rare gear, mocking those who look down on others for being high rank. His wild laughter fills the air. A memory surfaces of a happier time, when Tsukasa urged her brother to run and warn others, confidently stating she was fine because she was strong. In the present, that confidence is gone, replaced by the harsh reality of their betrayal. The bandit leader snaps at Tsukasa to stop talking nonsense, while the man with glasses sneers that a mere trap master has no chance of getting away. Overwhelmed by guilt, Tsukasa whispers an apology. Tears stream down her face as she cries out that it's all her fault for dragging him into this, convinced he will now die because of her. As she laments that she thought she wouldn't be lonely anymore, Kaikeru stands firm, his gaze fixed forward, ignoring the blades pointed at him. A faint, determined smile forms on his lips. He looks up, his eyes glinting with resolve as he speaks a quiet apology to Tsukasa, completely disregarding the bandit leader preparing to strike him from behind. He then declares that he has no intention of running. The path he is aiming for does not permit him to ignore trash like them. The large party leader, holding Tsukasa by the shoulder, leans in towards Kajura with a look of disbelief and anger. What the hell did you just say? He demands. Kajura looks back at him, his expression cold and unwavering. I called you ignorable trash, he repeats calmly, his words directed at the entire party. His insult ignites the party leader's fury. Veins bulge on his forehead as he roars at his companions. Don't go mouthing off, you trash-tier job punk. Kill him. In response to the order, Kajura acts instantly. He declares, trap set, arrow sigil, and a glowing glyph appears on the ground. The blonde party member, charging forward, is caught completely off guard as the trap activates, launching him violently into the air. He screams as he is flung helplessly through the trees. The party member with glasses can only watch in stunned silence, his attack halted by the sudden, shocking turn of events. Before the man with glasses can recover, he too is ensnared. A nearly invisible wire snaps, taut at ankle height, stopping him dead in his tracks as Kajura calmly walks past. He glances back at his immobilized opponent. You waited to react until after I moved, but we're too slow, Kajura states, adding, it doesn't matter how much rare gear you put on. You're still just a C rank inside. The party leader watches, seething. As the party leader stands frozen with rage, Tsukasa, who had been scrambling away, trips and falls to the ground with a cry of surprise. The leader finally breaks his paralysis, but halts his charge abruptly. He stares down at the glowing arrow sigil on the ground directly in his path, realizing with a jolt of fear, damn it, if I touch that arrow sigil, I'm toast. While he hesitates, Kajura reveals another tool, announcing flashbang. A brilliant light erupts, causing the leader to roar in pain and confusion. Seizing the opening, Kajura lunges forward and lands a solid strike on his blinded foe. He stands over the defeated party leader, who is now on his hands and knees. With his blade pointed down, Kajura states that he won't leave any openings, as he has experience fighting in even the most difficult environments, like sandstorms and underwater. The leader looks up, his face contorted in a furious grimace, threatening to kill Kajura and strip him of his gear. In response, Kajura, with a cold and steady gaze, tells him to watch closely, further enraging the man who seethes at being mocked. Kajura calmly explains that what the leader perceives as strength is not his true power. The man flashes back to his own past, recalling that he became strong by taking everything from those who mocked him, including their gear. His fury reaching a crescendo, the leader roars that he beat those people and won. He screams his conviction that the ones who survive are the only ones who can be called strong. Kajura refutes this entirely. He declares that the man didn't lose to him, but to his own weakness of heart. As he speaks, a glowing trap sigil becomes visible on the ground beneath the enraged leader. The intricate lines of the trap sigil glow brightly on the dungeon floor. In a blur of motion, Kajura dashes past the party leader. He comes to a stop behind the man, who now stands frozen, sweat dripping from his face as he realizes he has been completely outmaneuvered. Kajura reflects that the philosophy the leader espoused wasn't so different from things he heard growing up. He looks toward his own companions, concluding that the most important trait in a dungeon is the ability to entrust your back to someone. Back at their camp, Tsukasa reports that she called for backup, but no monsters appeared, and she is feeling fine. Kajura listens, thinking to himself that even if her call was a bluff, it was that very bluff that saved them. He watches the defeated adventurers being carried away, noting that the camo cloth was a helpful tool for the evacuation. He agrees with Tsukasa's earlier sentiment, remarking that with all their gear, the men won't die so easily. Beside him, Tsukasa apologizes, her expression filled with concern. She worries that he feels he was dragged into the conflict because of her, but he quickly tells her not to worry, admitting that he was actually glad she invited him. She addresses him affectionately as Oni-chan. He looks forward, stating that their party has been reduced from 5 members to just 2, and suggests that they should probably call it a day. Tsukasa immediately objects, her eyes wide with determination. She declares that she doesn't want to end the day like this, and wants to keep going until they physically can't continue anymore. She then asks him directly if he will continue to run the dungeon with her. He agrees without a moment's hesitation, exclaiming, "Of course I will." Internally, he feels a sense of relief, glad to see her fighting spirit is still intact. His enthusiastic agreement delights her. With a cheerful cry of, "Then let's go," she turns and leads the way, and the two of them venture deeper into the dungeon's wooded path. Meanwhile, hidden from view, Toga Natsum watches them depart. She muses that she was ready to jump in if anything happened, but seeing their renewed resolve, she concludes that her intervention won't be necessary. From another location, Reize Agino also observes their progress as they swiftly dispatch a pack of monsters. Deciding she has seen enough, she remarks that it is time to file her report. As they fight, Tsukasa marvels at Kajura's ability, asking if it's a unique skill. He confirms it is, admitting he kept it hidden at first as a precaution. Her curiosity turns into playful teasing as she asks if it's really okay for him to show her the skill, questioning if he's fallen for her. Kajura quickly dismisses it as a slip-up, but Tsukasa's amused expression suggests she thinks he wasn't being entirely honest. Having cleared the way, they finally arrive before a massive, ornate set of doors. Brimming with excitement, Tsukasa raises her weapon and triumphantly shouts, "Boss room, here we go," as Kajura stands calmly behind her, ready for the challenge. She surveys the vast, snowy expanse of the boss room, noting that the scenery hasn't changed much and that no boss is in sight. Kajura stands beside her, warning her not to let her guard down, as sometimes the enemy hides. In an instant, a blindingly fast attack slices through the air around them, startling both adventurers as they react to the unseen threat. The only evidence of the assault is a fresh gash in the snow. Tsukasa expresses her disbelief, stating she was on high alert and couldn't have missed it. Kajura confirms that he didn't see it either. Despite not seeing the attacker, his mind works quickly. He deduces their opponent is a wolf-type monster possessing stealth skills. As if summoned by his words, a spectral wolf with a glowing sigil on its forehead materializes for a moment. Kajura identifies it as a stealth wolf and notes that its howl is a call to summon others. His theory is proven correct as a pack of wolves appears in the distance. Tsukasa questions if this means they will spawn indefinitely. Kajura addresses the unseen leader, taunting it for hiding while its underlings do the hunting. The pack quickly surrounds them. Tsukasa realizes they are now the seekers in a game of hide-and-seek, where the only way to win is to find and eliminate the stealth wolf. Suddenly, Kajura's eyes lock onto a target as he shouts, "There!" He immediately sets a trap, an arrow sigil plus flame. As Tsukasa charges into the fray, she counts 10 wolves, but Kajura observes with concern that it seems to be an infinite spawn. He explains the difficulty. The main wolf blends in, making it hard to target, and it might not even be near the pack. Shouting her name, he asks if she can hold off the wolves on her own for 10 seconds. With a confident "got it," Tsukasa engages the horde. Seizing the opportunity, Kajura leaps away from the combat, simultaneously setting another trap in mid-air, an arrow sigil plus slash. He shouts encouragement, telling Tsukasa that the many trap installations are enough. With a determined cry, he urges her to push herself faster, to her absolute limit, for just a little longer. Her eyes widen in shock and exertion at his command. In that instant, the ground erupts. Kajura's trap detonates in a massive, concussive blast, annihilating the entire wolf pack in a storm of shrapnel and force. The shockwave sends Tsukasa hurtling through the air. Kajura cries out her name in alarm. Before she can recover, the spectral form of the main stealth wolf materializes from thin air and strikes her down. She screams in pain as the blow connects. He catches her, praising her for holding out so well. Kajura notes that they've lost track of the boss's location again, but Tsukasa, despite her injury, reassures him. She explains that with the pack gone, she can now focus on tracking the boss by its howl if it makes another sound. As she looks at his back, a profound realization washes over her. She thinks to herself that fighting alongside this Oni-chan is so much fun, that it feels just like love. Her eyes, filled with a new clarity, fix upon him. This, she understands, is the real Kajura Oni-chan. He turns to face her, his expression serious. Looking her directly in the eyes, he formally asks if she will officially team up with him. As they stand amidst the aftermath of their previous battle, Tsukasa Tsukigase turns to Kajura Kaikeru with a hopeful expression. She asks him directly, calling him Oni-chan, if he will officially team up with her. The question catches him off guard. He internally reflects that he has never once considered being in a party other than Holy Sword. He appreciates the offer, but explains that their first priority must be the stealth wolf. He asks for some time to think about her proposal, and Tsukasa readily agrees. With a slight smile, he thanks her for her understanding. They scan the desolate, debris-strewn landscape. Tsukasa notes that they have lost sight of the creature again and asks what their next move is. Moving stealthily, Kaikeru confidently reassures her. He states that he knows exactly where the wolf is and that he just needs her help to deal with it. Her face lights up with a bright smile. Tsukasa expresses her admiration, telling him he is truly amazing and that she is counting on him for the fight that is about to begin. Following his plan, Tsukasa stands ready, daggers in hand, as the spectral forms of the stealth wolf and its pack materialize before her in the clearing. From a higher vantage point overlooking the scene, Kaikaro makes a sharp gesture, snapping his fingers with audible finality. The sound triggers his trap. The main stealth wolf, now fully visible and corporeal, is caught. Kaikeru confirms his intent, stating that this was precisely why he set it up. With the target exposed, he and Tsukasa act in unison. A glowing magical sigil, an arrow, symbol X4, materializes on the ground beneath them, pulsing with energy. The symbol activates, launching Tsukasa high into the air. She descends like a missile, poised to strike the immobilized stealth wolf from above. She plummets towards the trapped wolf, a blur of motion. From the ground, Kaikeru watches, barely able to track her incredible speed. He has complete faith in her, however, and shouts his encouragement, roaring for her to go and that she will definitely get it. Her attack connects, a silent, decisive pass through the spectral form of the immobilized wolf. She lands softly on the ground, dagger held ready, as the ethereal body of the stealth wolf dissolves into particles of light behind her. Kaikeru rushes to her side, calling out her name, Tsukigase. Relief washes over them as he exclaims that they did it. She stands for a moment, her long hair flowing, gazing at the dissipating remains of their foe. Turning to face him, a bright, relieved smile spreads across her face. Thanks, Oni-chan, she says, her voice filled with gratitude. Sometime later, at the Reizei building, the tale of their battle concludes. A voice confirms understanding, stating, I see. So that's what happened. On an outdoor terrace, Kaikeru and Tsukasa sit with Reizei Agino. Toga Natsum, now dressed as a maid, serves them drinks as Reizei expresses her simple gladness that they both returned in one piece. Toga Natsum formally addresses Kaikeru, stating she is overjoyed to see him safe and sound. When he reacts with surprise to her attire, she clarifies that she works as a maid when not on duty as an observer. Her explanation leaves Tsukasa flustered. She confesses that she had found it strange Toga wasn't in uniform and had assumed the maid outfit was just a hobby. Kaikeru reacts with disbelief at her candidness. She looks up at Kaikeru, her expression a mixture of hope and anxiety. She admits that nervousness is part of her feelings, but trails off as he asks her what's wrong. As they sit at an outdoor table with Reizei, Toga Natsum serves them drinks in her maid uniform. Seeing the tension, Reizei lightly asks Kaikeru if he gets along with everyone present, gesturing to the all-female company. Ignoring Reizei's jest, Tsukasa leans forward, her gaze locked on Kaikeru. She presses the issue, stating that she still hasn't heard his answer and asks him directly once more. Will you form a party with me? He apologizes for making her wait. Their intense conversation is interrupted by Reizei, who correctly guesses they were discussing forming a party. Kaikeru looks down, his expression serious as he prepares his response. He then gives his answer, explaining that he doesn't plan on forming an official party. He reveals that he already has a party he used to belong to, and his ultimate goal is to reunite with them. Hearing his reluctance, Reizei interjects, questioning his reasoning. She lightly prods him, suggesting that forming a temporary party is perfectly fine. She elaborates on her point, laying out the many benefits. Not only would they level up more effectively, but practicing coordination would make him stronger. She warns that if he keeps working solo, he won't learn how to best use skills designed for team combat. She then directly connects this logic to his stated goal. If his true aim is to rejoin the Holy Sword Party, then accepting Tsukasa's offer is nothing but beneficial for him. Her words strike a nerve with Kaikeru. He questions her proposal, asking if she really wants him to take advantage of Tsukasa's kindness, knowing that he would eventually leave her. His mention of Holy Sword causes Tsukasa to gasp in shock. Recovering from her surprise, Tsukasa looks at Kaikeru with unwavering resolve and gives her own simple, firm answer. I don't mind. Her eyes sparkle with determination as she readily accepts his terms. She declares that she wouldn't let something so trivial prevent them from teaming up, and that she gladly chooses to do so. He had always made it a point to learn from others, and he internally reflects on the condition he had set for himself. If he ever had to form a party with anyone other than Holy Sword. Having finished his thought, he looks directly at Tsukasa and makes his decision official. He states clearly that he would like to team up with her. Her response is immediate and joyful. Kaikeru confirms the arrangement, and Reizei, observing them, declares that it is decided. Tsukasa adds one final condition with a smile, that he must fulfill his dream for her sake. He then turns his attention to the paladin sitting beside him. With the first partnership secured, Kaikeru formally asks Reizei if she would join them as well. She considers the offer, first asking Tsukasa if she would mind. Tsukasa beams, exclaiming that the more people, the better. With that, Reizei agrees, noting that they do need a tank. She admits she tried to let go of her reservations. Her agreement solidifies the group. Tsukasa leaps from her chair in pure elation, shouting that it's their party now and that it feels like a dream come true. The initial excitement settles into practical matters. Reize offers to handle the necessary paperwork. Tsukasa immediately nominates Kaikeru as the leader, insisting he should be the one to decide on the party's name. He is left to ponder the question. He falls silent, his gaze distant as he sits at the cafe table. After a moment of contemplation, he speaks a single, meaningful word: vestige. He explains his reasoning, admitting that while chasing the past can be embarrassing, it is his greatest motivation. He then makes it official. From this day on, they're the party members of Vestige. Tsukasa thinks the name is cool, and Reize agrees it's a good choice. The new friends then decide to exchange contact information. As the new party forms, a key detail about their youngest member, Tsukage's Tsukasa, comes to light. The adventurer is only 14 years old. The revelation is compounded when Tsukasa, looking at Kaikeru, has a realization of their own, internally noting that their new party leader is male. This causes Reize to burst into laughter, loudly exclaiming her shock that Tsukasa is a boy. Kaikeru sighs, remarking to Reize that he had told her Tsukasa wouldn't be able to tell Kaikeru's gender either. Meanwhile, in a high-rise overlooking the city, Kohagane learns of recent events, quietly acknowledging to herself that Kaikeru has formed a new party. She turns from the window as her maid, Toga Natsum, stands by. Ko thanks Natsum for the report and requests she continue watching him. Ko reflects that she couldn't refuse a request from her cute Kohai, even though she is acting without her lady's knowledge. She notes that since he didn't return home, she was fortunate to locate him through her own connections. Her thoughts continue as she stands before a massive, crystalline structure. She calls Kaikeru an adventurer idiot, but admits she finds that part of him irresistibly cute. However, her expression turns serious as she considers that, based on what she's heard, he is still not strong enough for a place like this. Elsewhere, in what appears to be a dungeon, Itomi Kakuri of the Holy Sword Party finds her path blocked by two aggressive, bird-like monsters. In response to the threat, she unleashes a terrifying ability. With a command to die, massive, shadowy claws erupt around her, embodying the technique known as the Hand of the Death God. The devastating attack obliterates the creatures. Standing amidst the dissipating dark energy, Kakuri considers the possibility of Kaikeru chasing after them. She resolves that they will simply have to finish their objective before he can catch up. She then rejoins her party members, Ashitari Yukiko and another Holy Sword member. When Yukiko asks if the path ahead is safe, Kakuri puts on a cheerful facade, casually replying that it was hunky-dory and no problem at all. She resolves to keep her knowledge a secret from her companions, believing that Kohagane in particular would lose her edge if she knew the truth. With that internal decision made, Itomi Kukuri agrees with her party member's suggestion, and the Holy Sword party moves on. The two members, Itomi Kukuri and Ashitari Yukiko, walk away with purpose, their backs to the observer as they proceed with their mission. Elsewhere, under a cloudy night sky, a modern high-rise building stands illuminated, its many windows suggesting a formal event within. Inside, Kaikeru, now dressed in a formal suit, listens as Tsukage's Tsukasa expresses her excitement. She declares it's her first time doing something like this. He compliments her dress, to which she playfully responds that it suits her perfectly because she's so cute. Her cheerful demeanor shifts slightly as she observes him, noting that he seems a little restless. Kaikeru looks away, admitting that he has always been bad with neckties. Their conversation is interrupted by Reize Agino, who approaches them in an elegant gown. She asks if they are ready, and Kaikeru confirms that he is as ready as he can be. With his party assembled and formally dressed, Kaikeru's expression hardens with resolve. He gives the command to move out, announcing that they are heading to Vestige's first battle. Raid battles are a known phenomenon, a joint operation where multiple parties team up to challenge a particularly difficult dungeon. At a lavish gathering for one such event, Tsukasa marvels at the sheer number of parties assembled. Kaikeru, standing beside her, notes that the scale of this particular raid is special, thanks to the nature of the leading role. A young woman with a bright smile takes the stage, introducing herself as the raid organizer, Kiryuin Jessica, and expresses her delight at the turnout. In the crowd, other adventurers murmur among themselves, noting her youth, her promising prospects as a witch, and her distinct foreign lady aura. Tsukasa asks if Jessica is their employer, but Kaikeru clarifies that it's more precisely her father. He explains their goal, to secure the achievement of clearing a high-ranked dungeon. Raid battles, he points out, are perfect for this, as being surrounded by capable allies allows one to smuggle one or two newcomers through. He continues, explaining that the high pay is specifically to gather more capable adventurers than usual. Tsukasa processes this information, realizing it's a mutually beneficial arrangement. Jessica gets her achievement, while the participants not only get a reward, but also gain experience in a higher rank area than they might normally access. Despite understanding the logic, Tsukasa can't help but feel that the arrangement seems somewhat unfair. Kaikeru quietly reflects that, having been carried by Japan's top party himself, it isn't his place to judge. Just then, Jessica herself approaches Kaikeru and another adventurer. She expresses her gratitude for the excellent turnout, but admits they recruited more people than planned. She then reveals to Kaikeru that she had asked Reize earlier if his group could participate when she went to register Vestige. Returning to the stage, her voice booms through the hall with an announcement. Tomorrow, a selection test will be held for the raid members. The method for the test will be duels, and from all the assembled adventurers, only 20 members will be chosen. Tsukasa is shocked, realizing people will be sent home. Kaikeru, however, notes that this is a common occurrence. Seeing it as an opportunity, he tells Tsukasa he's going to do some greetings and get some food while he can. As Tsukasa processes the news, Kaikeru steps away, taking a moment to survey the bustling, competitive crowd from a distance. He stood amidst the crowd, the announcement of duels stirring a familiar anxiety. The fact that he was expelled from Holy Sword was a secret he hoped would remain buried, lest it cause trouble. The social setting felt nostalgic, a reminder of times when he left such interactions to Ko. Nearby, Tsukasa was frozen with worry, her mind racing as she wondered what she could possibly do. Her distress deepened as she considered that she might not be able to join the raid at all. Kaikeru noticed her expression, realizing there was another young person present besides himself. Tsukasa's panic spiraled, her thoughts consumed by a single, frantic need. She had to win. Overwhelmed by this frantic energy, she suddenly lost her footing. "Hey!" Kaikeru cried out as she stumbled forward, sending a plate of dango skewers flying through the air before she crashed to the floor with a pained cry. He was at her side in an instant, kneeling on the messy floor. "Just calm down, please," he urged, asking what had her so panicked. Flustered and embarrassed, Tsukasa could only manage a quiet, "I'm sorry." With tears welling in her eyes, she explained her plight. She was a wizard, and she absolutely needed to join this raid. The problem was, she was terrible at duels. He listened patiently before responding. "I get it," he said, reassuring her that it was all right. He admitted that he was in a similar position, as there are many rearguards who are bad at duels, himself included. He continued, explaining his analysis of the situation. The organizer wants the most suitable members for the raid, so it's not as if they send all the losers home. He advised her that as long as she could show off her abilities, she could still join even if she lost her match. The key, he suggested, was to pair up with someone who could help her demonstrate what she can really do. Tsukasa looked up, surprised by this line of thinking. Therefore, he concluded, she didn't need to panic so much. All she had to do was put on a good show. He then added with a small smile, "And don't spill any more food." His reassurance worked. Holding her plate, Tsukasa looked down, a sense of calm washing over her. "Thanks," she said softly. That calmed me down a little bit. Though he had said that to calm her, Kaikeru privately acknowledged that for a C-rank trapmaster like himself, he practically had to win. He and Tsukasa agreed to do their best together. Across the room, the organizer, Jessica, spotted a newcomer and called out her name, Akino. She rushed to greet Reize Agino, overjoyed that her friend was joining. In a quiet moment before the duels, Kiryu and Jessica approaches Reize Agino, asking if she is scared. Though her hands are clasped with a hint of nerves, Agino confidently replies that of course she would come, as it is her time to be in the spotlight. Jessica teases her, remarking that Agino is still being treated like a child. Agino bristles at the comment, insisting that Jessica just wait and see. She declares that after this event, her father will leave his company to her, and then they will finally be equals. Jessica simply agrees, her playful demeanor shifting. Jessica reminds Agino that she accepted a certain someone based on a recommendation. She then directly questions Agino, asking if she is truly sure about having a trapmaster join their ranks. Seeing Agino's conviction, Jessica smiles and retorts that she just told her. She playfully concludes that Agino's hesitation proves she is still just a kid who doesn't understand how much he is truly worth. Elsewhere, in the dueling arena, an organizer's voice booms, declaring Kaikeru the winner. He stands victorious, but internally worries that he had to resort to using his arrow symbol skill, hoping no one noticed the secret technique. Watching from the stands, Raid Commander Hu narrows his eyes, pondering the strange attack he just witnessed. Nearby, another spectator angrily scolds the defeated duelist for losing to a mere trapmaster. His match concluded, Kaikeru is met by an ecstatic Tsukasa. She cheers for her Oni-chan, boasting that it was an easy win and demanding praise. After he congratulates her, she eagerly points out that Ryuziai's match is next and that they should go cheer for her. He agrees, and Tsukasa mentions she's never seen Akino Wunshin fight before. Kaikeru admits he hasn't seen much of the paladin in action either. Their attention turns to the arena below, where Reize Agino faces a wizard, a matchup that promises a contest of strength. Tsukasa's eyes widen in recognition. As the duel begins, Tsukasa realizes the opponent is the girl from the previous day and shouts encouragement to her Oni-chan. Kaikeru watches with interest, anticipating a good show. The wizard lifts her bow and draws the string taut. Agino watches, her expression shifting to surprise as she realizes there is no physical arrow knocked. Instead, pure energy begins to gather at the focal point of the bowstring. The paladin stands firm as her opponent unleashes a massive blast of energy. Watching from the crowd, Tsukasa gasps at the incredible power, wondering aloud if Agino can possibly block such an attack, feeling her own advice may have been unnecessary. She braces herself, shield forward. Agino acknowledges to herself that she could likely dodge the incoming projectile, but she is determined to face it head-on and show everyone the true dignity of a tank. With a tremendous impact, her shield meets the energy blast, holding strong. From the sidelines, Tsukasa cheers her on, shouting that Agino blocked it and is incredibly tough. As the attack subsides, Agino realizes she must now find a way past her opponent's defenses. The wizard closes the distance, readying for close-quarters combat, but a loud command to stop rings out, halting the duel instantly. The match is called. Raid Commander Haido remarks that it was amazing and that both combatants have shown more than enough to pass, noting it could have turned nasty quickly. The wizard duelist looks down, dejected, as Agino watches her. Later, in a changing room, Tsukasa informs Kaikeru that she's leaving first and heads off toward the showers. He acknowledges her with a simple okay. He makes his own way out, and as he passes through a doorway, he comes face to face with another person leaving. It's the wizard duelist from a match. She shyly excuses herself and then thanks him, explaining that because of his advice, she wasn't nervous for her fight. Kaikeru responds that he had no idea she was so strong. He adds that it's good she was able to show her power, as it's reassuring to have such a powerful ally for the dungeon. Looking at him with a newfound confidence, she formally introduces herself. I am Yujui too. She offers to give Kaikeru something as thanks for his earlier advice, but he firmly refuses, stating he didn't do it for reward. His gaze then falls upon her bag, which is unexpectedly adorned with a vast collection of pins, all bearing the image of Ashitari Yukiko. The connection clicks in his mind, and he blurts out the nickname, Yuko. Yujui visibly flinches at the name, and Kaikeru immediately questions himself for using it. She immediately reprimands him, declaring that he is not allowed to call Ashitari-san Yuko. Confused, Kaikeru listens as she explains that Yuko is a special nickname reserved only for her close friends. She cites page 57 of a special Holy Sword report as her source, adding that fans must respect the wishes of their idols and that it's impressive he even knew the name. He finally understands. She is an ardent fan of Yukiko and, by extension, the Holy Sword Party. Yujui, blushing with embarrassment, seems to realize she has just revealed her passionate fandom. The memory brings him to a later conversation with Tsukasa and Ko. Tsukasa expresses her shock, exclaiming that she had no idea her Oni Ai-chan was once a member of the Holy Sword Party. He explains that he wasn't a public face, as their leader handled nearly all media affairs. He reasons that since Tsukasa and Ko hadn't operated in Tokyo alongside them, they would only recognize the most famous members, Yukiko and Kakuri. He then muses that, similarly, the only name he knew from their side was Hagane Ko's. Outside, a young woman in a school uniform, Yujui True, confronts Kajura Kaikeru, holding up a magazine featuring Ashitari Yukiko. With clear agitation, she insists that he has no right to call Ashitari-san by the familiar nickname Yuko. Taken aback by her fervor, Kaikeru realizes she must be a devoted fan. Yujui explains that even so, it's a nickname she herself gave to Ashitari, and it has simply become a habit for her to use it. Their conversation is interrupted by the cheerful arrival of Tsukage's Tsukasa, who calls out an apology to Kaikeru for making him wait. Her sudden appearance flusters him, causing him to stammer in surprise as Yujui watches them. Her gaze remains fixed on Kaikeru, her expression unreadable as she quietly murmurs his name, processing the new arrival. The awkward silence leaves both Kaikeru and Tsukasa staring back at her with wide-eyed apprehension. Breaking the quiet, she continues her line of thought, mentioning that she had heard the nickname Yuko was given to Ashitari by a childhood friend. He corrects her, clarifying that this detail isn't mentioned in any interviews and is merely a rumor spread by a fan who met her in person, a rumor he admits he once believed himself. A look of realization dawns on her face. She addresses him directly, identifying him as Kaikoven, the phantom fourth member of the Holy Sword Party. The title makes him visibly cringe. He shuts his eyes in embarrassment, pleading with her not to use such an awkward title. Her mind connects the dots from his reaction, and her expression shifts to one of pure shock. She shouts out a single, disbelieving word, expelled. Her mind reeled from the revelation of his expulsion. As Kaikeru stands flustered, Tsukasa misinterprets the tense atmosphere, wondering aloud if this is some kind of scandal involving the famed Holy Sword Party. The moment is interrupted by the arrival of Ashitari Yukiko, who apologizes for her tardiness. Tsukasa observes Kaikeru's sudden dejection, chiding him for getting depressed all of a sudden. He internally admits that he cannot deny being expelled. From the side, Tsukasa whispers to Yujui, speculating that he's being exposed and is now trying to win Yujui over. Turning his attention back to Yujui, he explains that while he would like to avoid trouble for the time being, his primary concern is not causing any more issues for Holy Sword. He elaborates, stating that if people discovered he was a former member, they likely wouldn't leave him alone. Understanding the potential complications, he asks her to please keep his past a secret. She readily agrees, promising not to tell anyone. A wave of relief washes over Kaikeru as he thanks her for her understanding. With the tension diffused, Tsukasa cheerfully comments on how strong Ashitari must be. She then turns to Kaikeru, eagerly asking if he has a picture of Ashitari or something similar. The simple question sends Yuzui into a fit of intense, sputtering blushes, her composure completely shattered as Tsukasa watches with curiosity. Sometime later, the group, now including Ashitari, sits at a table in a lounge. Kaikeru internally reflects that while he'd heard the members of Holy Sword had some obsessive fans, it feels strange to meet one. Beside him, a starstruck Yuzui exclaims how rare it is to see Ashitari in person. Tsukasa, meanwhile, looks around the establishment with wide eyes. She remarks that it's her first time sleeping in a hotel near a dungeon and wonders aloud about the cost. She listens as Yuzui explains that the hotel is owned by the Kiryuin family and that these accommodations are part of her formal studies. Tsukasa is taken aback, realizing that Yuzui must be receiving a gifted education. Later, as the group sits together in a lounge, two other adventurers approach their table. Seeing them huddled around something, one of the men asks what they are looking at, noting it appears to be a picture of a girl. Leaning in for a closer look at the device in Kaikeru's hands, one of the men recognizes the figures in the photo, exclaiming that it's the Holy Sword Party. Kaikeru flinches, startled by the sudden recognition. Ashitari quietly warns him to stop for the day, lest his past be exposed again. He apologizes and thanks her for the rescue. At the same time, Tsukasa excitedly shows off a new bag, declaring that converting him is her life's purpose. Feeling excluded, she then turns to Ashitari, insisting they talk with her and Yuzui as well, not just Kaikeru. Tsukasa cheerfully guesses that they are all about the same age. Following this, Yuzui asks Ashitari if she always works alone. Ashitari confirms that she does, explaining that while she usually lives far away, she joins larger groups for significant raids like the one they are planning. Tsukasa expresses her admiration, remarking that Ashitari takes her work very seriously for their age. As they speak, Kaikeru reflects internally on the many dangers they will face in the high-rank areas of the dungeon. Her expression hardening, Ashitari cuts in, stating with resolve that there is a dungeon drop she must acquire, no matter the cost. She reveals her target, the blue elixir. The name of the item causes an immediate reaction. Tsukasa shouts in disbelief, asking if it's the same item that sells for 1 billion yen. Ashitari confirms that it is indeed a very rare drop. Kaikeru's eyes narrow as he connects the pieces. An elixir of that power could only mean one thing. He looks directly at Ashitari and asks, "There's someone close to you who's sick, right?" He watched as Ashitari Yukiko finally began to explain, her voice quiet as she clutched a small bag. She started by speaking of her mother, her words trailing off. She continued, revealing that her mother could no longer walk and that the doctors, using this world's technology, had said there was nothing more to be done. Tsukasa and Yuzui listened with somber expressions. With the truth revealed, she looked at Kaikeru with gratitude. He now understood that this was why she was so desperate to join the raid, no matter what. She thanked him directly. Having said all she needed to, Ashitari turned and walked down the hallway of the inn, bidding them a simple good night before disappearing into her room. Kaikeru reflected on her character, thinking of her as Yuko. He realized that even in desperate situations, her nature was to save people, recalling her own declaration that it was what she lived for. The group's mood shifted to determination. Tsukasa raised a fist, enthusiastically saying they should do their best tomorrow. Ashitari agreed, and Kaikeru affirmed his readiness as well. Standing alone for a moment, Kaikeru resolved not to fall behind. The next day, the raid force assembled. Commander Haidu stood before the adventurers, including Kaikeru, Tsukasa, and Ashitari, and roared that the raid battle was beginning. Among the diverse group of adventurers stood a young woman wearing a large, pointed witch's hat. She clutched her staff, her expression focused and ready for the fight. As the battle began, Kaikeru immediately put his skills to use. An ally shouted that they were luring monsters his way, and he expertly set up a trap, dispatching them instantly to the approval of his comrades. The initial success prompted the party leader to comment that the raid was going well. Nearby, the witch hat healer offered her support. Commander Haidu, however, remained cautious, ordering everyone to regroup and not stray from the formation. As the dust settles from his successful trap deployment, Kaikeru looks back, internally questioning the flamboyant names he had assigned them: Statue of Heaven's Fall, Murder Mebius, and Whispering Maris. He finds the whole naming convention rather strange. His display of skill earns immediate praise from his new party. Tsukasa cheers that her Oni Ai-chan is the best, while also expressing her own desire to hurry up and join the fight. Following their initial success, Ashitari clarifies their objective to the group. She states that the plan is for their advance party to take care of everything until they reach the boss's room, and they proceed deeper into the dungeon. As they advance, Commander Haidu suddenly shouts for Kaikeru's attention. Ashitari understands the implication, telling her companions that this means they will be in charge of the all-important final battle and must prepare themselves. Kaikeru quietly agrees. The commander approaches him directly, stating that Kaikeru is strong and shouldn't play dumb. He then reminds him that despite this strength, he is not officially part of the main group. He advises Kaikeru to slow down and conserve his strength for the boss. The commander admits he would have put Kaikeru in the main group if he hadn't been registered as a trap master, acknowledging that adventurers always hide their trump cards and that he intends to put Kaikeru's skills to good use. Seeing an opportunity, Kaikeru asks if he can pose a question. He asks why it's standard procedure for the advance party to take the initial damage. Hayudu explains his plan. Upon entering the boss's room, he will deploy the tanks from the main group to the front line. This is a standard tactic to absorb the first few hits and assess the enemy they are facing. The commander elaborates that dungeons normally have a consistent theme to them, such as being populated entirely by wolf monsters or fire monsters. This thematic consistency usually helps in predicting the nature of the final boss. This dungeon, however, is different. As they gaze into the vast, empty expanse ahead, Hayudu admits that because there is no discernible theme, he cannot predict what kind of boss they will encounter at all. He voices his fear that the outcome could be very bad. His expression turns grim. The commander concedes that Kaikeru has a valid point, but internally laments that he cannot act on it. His gaze drifts to his own party members, noting that the young lady is present, a fact that seems to constrain his options. He explains that if there is something to worry about, it is all the more reason to keep the main tanks in reserve. Kaikeru listens, internally processing that the commander is prioritizing the safety of his employer, a logic he reluctantly accepts as making sense. Despite this, he can't shake the feeling that he is overlooking something crucial. His train of thought is abruptly severed when a scout rushes back to the group, shouting that they have found the boss's room. The raid party proceeds into a colossal cavern. The chamber ceiling is a nightmarish structure of massive, bone-like arches, giving the impression that they are standing within the ribcage of some gargantuan, long-dead creature. Within the oppressive space, Tsukasa expresses her fear of the unsettling environment. Kaikeru tries to reassure her, noting it's unlike the places she's used to, but Ashitori Yukiko cuts in with a sharp warning to be careful, as the boss's exact location is still unknown. Suddenly, Kaikeru's eyes widen as he spots it. A massive, armored, crustacean-like monster plummets from the cavern ceiling. As it crashes into their formation, shouts erupt from the party members, ordering everyone to get into formation as they realize the boss is upon them. The creature immediately brings a colossal claw down in a devastating slam. Seeing the attack unfold, Kaikeru screams a desperate, one-word warning to the party. Dodge! A frontline tank is caught in the path of the blow. He raises his shield to defend, but the sheer force of the impact shatters the metal, the defensive gear cracking under the immense pressure. As chaos erupts, the young healer in the witch hat stands firm. A small cut appears on her cheek, but her gaze is fixed and intensely focused as she begins to gather dark energy, preparing a counterattack amidst the pandemonium. Kajura's mind races, a sudden realization striking him. He berates himself for not seeing it sooner. The creature isn't a single entity, but a composite of monsters known for their incredible attack power. Whispering Maris, Murder Mebius, and Statue of Heaven's Fall. That composite beast now thrashes wildly, its massive claws sweeping through the cavern and sowing chaos among the assembled adventurers. Its rampage claims a victim. One of the adventurers is struck down, his body falling lifelessly. The others cry out in terror and disbelief, the party leader shouting the fallen man's name in horror. His horror turns to dread as he glances back, realizing the monster's enormous body has completely blocked the exit, trapping them all inside. As the creature rears back for another attack, the party leader screams for everyone to get back. In stark contrast, Kajura yells at the paladin, Reize, ordering her to step forward. The party leader turns, questioning Kajura's sanity. Kajura quickly explains that the monster is a death mantis, a creature that instinctively attacks any nearby opponents with its bladed limbs. The leader panics, seeing the monster's smaller spawn and realizing many will die if they don't act. Kajura internally reviews the failed strategy. The original plan required 2 tanks to occupy the monster's sickles, but with 1 tank down and not enough defenders, the formation is broken. If no one is close, the mantis will attack at random. Seeing the chaos and the strategic void, he steps forward. A glowing, star-emblazoned shield materializes on his arm as he declares he will take care of one side himself. He turns to Reize, acknowledging the monster's immense power and admitting he cannot guarantee her own shield will withstand the blows. He then asks her directly if she will come with him anyway. Her expression hardens with resolve. Reize agrees, stating she just has to follow his lead. Her acceptance is immediately met with a cry of protest from Tsukasa, who shouts, "No!" Nearby, the witch-hatted healer weeps in terror. She stands firm, but the healer in the pointed hat grabs her arm, pleading for her not to go. The healer warns that she, too, will die. Ignoring the healer, she turns to Tsukasa, whose eyes are filled with tears. The paladin states calmly that there are times when a lady must act. With her decision made, Reize strides forward, leaving the concerned healer behind to join Kajura on the front line. Taking her position beside him, they present a united front. Kajura and Reize raise their shields against the towering death mantis as he roars a challenge. "Come at me." The monster responds instantly, bringing a massive claw down with blinding speed. Kajura meets the blow, his star-emblazoned shield flaring as it intercepts the strike. The force of the impact is immense. Kajura realizes the monster's attack power is the highest among A-rank bosses and knows that if he fails to redirect a single strike with his arrow symbol skill, he is done for. Beside him, Reize strains, marveling at its raw strength, while the party leader watches in awe. Seeing the two tanks holding the line, the party leader bellows orders for anyone with ranged attacks to provide support. The man with glasses then turns to the healer, instructing her to focus entirely on healing the pair at the front. But the pressure is relentless. Kajura and Reize tremble under the strain of the assault. The healer watches with growing dread, realizing they won't be able to last long like this. As the two defenders begin to falter, Tsukasa makes a desperate decision. Determined to distract the beast for even a single attack, she charges forward alone. Her reckless charge is met with a swift, brutal response. The monster's claw whips around and casually swats her aside, sending her flying through the air with a pained cry, cutting short the party leader's shout of encouragement. She lies on the ground, stunned by the force of the blow, a curse escaping her lips as she stares at the monstrous claw that had just swatted her aside. Before the monster could strike again, the witch hat healer rushes to her side, helping her up as the party leader shouts Tsukasa's name in alarm. As the healer confirms Tsukasa is all right, Kajuro watches from a distance, processing what he just witnessed. He realizes Tsukasa used stealth, an assassin-type skill he's never heard of a wizard possessing, and briefly wonders if her admiration for Yuko is the reason. His attention then shifts, and he calls out to Yuzui. Having recovered her senses, Tsukasa shouts a new strategy. She declares that she will stop the monster's arms for a moment, asking Yuzui if she can then get close and fire a spell from inside its shell. The party leader overhears the risky proposal. He questions sending her to get close using stealth, pointing out the immense danger she would face if she were to mess up. Despite the concern, Yuzui's gaze is fixed on Kajura. She states her trust in him, affirming that he is a good person. With her resolve set, she activates her skill, her form vanishing as she invokes stealth. As she disappears, the party leader and the member with glasses turn to Kajura, offering their assistance. But he is already on the move, walking away from them and towards the fray. He breaks into a sprint, charging directly at the death mantis. He yells a desperate plea for Yuzui not to die as the monster's massive claws begin to descend, roaring for her not to let go. In response to the descending threat, Kajura thrusts his hand forward, activating his skill. Arrow, symbol, X4. He commands, and a glowing, circular sigil materializes in the air, intercepting the attack and creating a safe path for the stealth Yuzui. The monster's enormous claw crashes against the magical barrier with devastating force, the impact echoing through the cavern as Kajura strains to hold it back. Under the protection of his magical barrier, Yuzui Turu successfully dashes past the death mantis's massive claw, moving deeper into its attack range as planned. Her success prompts a wave of celebration from the party members, watching from a safe distance. The leader shouts that they did it, exclaiming that they can win if they just crush the other arm. In the foreground, however, Kajura feels the strain of maintaining the shield, but their celebration is premature. On another front, the paladin Reize Agino grits her teeth as her own shield begins to crack and splinter under a separate, overwhelming assault from the monster. The immense force proves too much, and her shield shatters completely, leaving her defenseless. Left exposed, she can only watch as the death mantis's other claw descend upon her. The party members cry out in alarm, and Kajura, witnessing her plight, screams her name, Reize. He feels his own power failing, sweat beading on his brow as he realizes he's at his limit. At the same time, Tsukasa screams for her One-Ichan, her voice filled with terror. Despite his exhaustion, Kajura breaks into a desperate sprint, attempting to reach Reize before the claw connects. As he runs, two other figures stand ready. Kiryu and Jessica and the young healer stand back to back, their expressions hardening with resolve. Seeing them, Reize cries out Jessica's name. In response, tears stream down the healer's face as she makes a desperate vow, screaming that she won't let anyone else die. Her grief and determination manifest in a raw, powerful scream as she unleashes a torrent of magical energy from her staff, aimed directly at the descending claw. As the battle rages, Reize Agino successfully deflects a powerful attack from the giant crustacean monster. Seeing the opening, the party leader shouts that this is their chance. Simultaneously, Tsukage's Tsukasa unleashes her Shadow Stitch ability, causing dark spikes to erupt from the ground and impale the monster's legs, holding it in place. Seizing the brief opportunity, Yuzui Turu gathers her remaining energy. She notes that she has very little mana left, but prays this final attack will be enough, knowing the binding will only hold for a moment before she unleashes her spell. Her spell streaks through the cavern, a concentrated beam of energy that slams into the immobilized boss with tremendous force, creating a massive explosion of light and debris. The impact is devastating. The party leader shouts in triumph as the monster's two massive claws are cleanly severed from its body and begin to fall. With the creature disarmed, he rallies the others to press the attack, roaring for everyone to fire everything they have to finish it off. Amid the chaos of the final assault, Kajura rushes to Ri-Izzy's side, calling out her name with concern. She looks up at him, weary but steady, and confirms that she is all right. He lets out a visible sigh of relief, his face contorted with emotion as he expresses how thankful he is that she is safe. As he recovers, Kiryu and Jessica approaches Reize. After Reize acknowledges her, Jessica offers a simple, heartfelt thank you for her crucial role in the fight. The battle appears to be over. One of the boss's enormous, severed claws lies motionless on the cavern floor, a testament to the party's hard-won victory. However, standing before the fallen monster, the party members express uncertainty. The party leader wonders aloud if they truly defeated it, while his companion questions what exactly just happened, suggesting the situation is not as straightforward as it seems. The party's brief moment of relief shatters. From the cracks in the defeated boss's carapace, dozens of smaller, identical creatures emerge. Tsukage Tsukasa cries out in horror, realizing the offspring are consuming their parent's corpse. Kajura Kaikeru can only stare, stunned by the grotesque turn of events. As the creatures feed, they begin to grow rapidly, seemingly maturing into adult forms. The party's bespectacled member shouts that they are not growing that fast and can be defeated before they fully develop. The party leader roars for his comrades not to falter. Heeding his command, the party leader bellows for everyone to charge. The adventurers surge forward as one, descending upon the swarming offspring in a chaotic melee. From the rear, Kiryu and Jessica analyzes the desperate charge. She concludes that if they can land just one more powerful, decisive blow, victory is possible. With grim resolve, she acknowledges that they can no longer afford to hold back. This sentiment is shared across the field. Kaikeru glances back to see the Witch Hat healer and Yuzui Turu standing ready. Their expressions harden with determination despite the overwhelming odds. He quickly confers with them. Yuzui Turu admits she is also completely spent. The Witch Hat healer then turns to Kaikeru, offering him a final reserve of power. She states it isn't much, but it's all she can give for one final combined attack, placing all her hope in him. With their combined hopes fueling him, Kaikeru breaks away and sprints toward the monster swarm. He knows he can no longer defend himself with the arrow's symbol, but his resolve is absolute as he roars to himself, "I won't miss." He leaps high above the fray, raising his weapon for a powerful overhead strike, channeling every last bit of his energy and the power gifted to him into this single, decisive blow. From the edge of the fight, Tsukasa watches with wide, worried eyes. Deep within the horde, Kaikeru lands and frantically searches, demanding to know where the rest of the creatures are. In response to his challenge, a massive, blinding light erupts from his position. The explosion of power engulfs the entire clearing, swallowing Kaikeru and the surrounding monsters in its brilliant, silent detonation. His desperate gambit paid off. As the light from the massive explosion faded, the surviving members of the raid party looked on in exhausted relief. Before them, a shimmering portal had appeared, which the party leader identified as the gate, their way out. At the center of the devastation, Kaikeru stood, leaning heavily on his weapon, but undeniably alive. A wave of triumphant shouts erupted from the party as they realized their victory was complete. They had done it. The initial euphoria quickly gave way to a quiet, weary solemnity. The paladin, the wizard duelist, and the healer stood in silence, the true cost of their success beginning to settle in. Having passed through the gate, the small group of survivors emerged under the vast night sky. A voice murmured in disbelief that they had made it back alive. A dark, burn-like mark was visible on the back of one adventurer's neck, a stark reminder of the battle. Their survival was not without loss. The party gathered before a makeshift memorial, a simple stone slab flanked by torches, to pay their respects to a fallen comrade. The party leader approached Kaikeru, his voice low. He stated that once they carried the fallen adventurer back, they could return him to his family. He then clapped a hand on Kaikeru's shoulder, telling him it was a good thing he was there. He didn't respond, his gaze fixed downward. He reflected internally that he was the only one who knew about that monster. From nearby, a voice added that holding this memorial is the last thing they can offer a fellow adventurer. His regret deepened. He thought to himself that if only he had noticed the dungeon's theme sooner, or if he'd had the courage to admit he used to be an holy sword, perhaps things would have been different. He couldn't know for sure, but the possibility haunted him. Sensing his turmoil, the party leader tried to console him, saying that everyone did what they could back then. He added that the only one who could truly change anything would be a god. Still, Kaikeru remained lost in his thoughts. He disagreed silently, his mind conjuring images of his former comrades from Holy Sword. He believed that any one of them would have been able to handle the situation on their own, a stark contrast to his own perceived failure. He continues to dwell on his perceived failures, his mind replaying the recent battle. He thinks of himself as weak, believing his shortcomings could have led to an unforgivable outcome for his new companions. Startled from his thoughts, he wonders aloud what he must do to catch up to the strength of his former comrades. As if in answer, a folded paper bird drifts down before him, guiding his gaze toward a lone figure standing by a tree in the distance. The figure is Itomi Kukuri, a member of his old party, Holy Sword. She holds the paper messenger in her hand, a gentle, knowing smile on her face as she waits for him. He approaches, his voice filled with disbelief as he calls out her name. Before he can say more, Kukuri raises a single finger to her lips, silently asking for quiet. They begin walking together through the trees. Kukuri breaks the silence, observing that he appears to be troubled by something, and suggests they find a place to talk more privately. Kaikeru cuts straight to his primary concern, asking grimly if someone from her party has died. Kukuri's expression turns somber as she confirms it, admitting that no matter how many times she experiences such a loss, she can never get used to it. She then turns the observation back on him, noting that he doesn't look well either, implying his own recent battle has taken a visible toll. His gaze drifts away as he reflects internally. He hasn't even seen the members of his new party since that day, a brief memory surfacing of him walking away from them after the raid. Kukuri steers the conversation back to their shared past. She apologizes for leaving without a proper goodbye back then, but immediately follows up with a wry smile, stating that she is, in fact, still very mad about it. She continues her gentle probing, suggesting that perhaps he had the wrong idea about her, or maybe he found the entire situation with her just too awkward to handle. Facing him with a serious expression, Itomi Kukuri states that she is short on time and must be direct. She then delivers a shocking revelation. This coming winter, the first attempt on the Origin Gate will be made. The news startles Kaikeru. His eyes widen as he processes her words, repeating the name Origin Gate before asking if they are finally going through with it. Kukuri looks down, her expression somber. She continues, explaining that a selection test will be held in the fall to determine which parties will provide support. Crucially, she adds, his party must be A rank to even participate. Kukuri looks at him intently, telling him that if he wants to try for it, he must hurry. Her name is called from a distance. She glances back nervously, explaining to Kaikeru that she snuck out to meet him and must return before she is discovered. As she turns to leave, he demands to know why she told him all this. Kukuri pauses, her back still to him, and quietly wonders the same thing. She continues her thought, admitting that she wanted him to stay safe, or at least, that's what she initially thought she wanted. Her expression then softens into a bright, genuine smile as she confesses the truth. She was just incredibly happy when she heard he was working so hard. As he watches her depart, a memory surfaces of him calling her name. He admits to himself that he was sorry for not meeting her sooner, confessing that he had been too scared to face her. The weight of his regret settles upon him. His silent turmoil did not go unnoticed. Kukuri, her expression soft yet firm, made her own declaration, stating that she would not run away anymore either. Her words ignited a fire within him. Kaikeru roared back, vowing that he would become stronger, strong enough to stand by her side. Their voices joined in a single, powerful promise, sealing their mutual resolve. Her gentle smile met his fierce, determined shout. As she began to walk away, Kukuri glanced back, noting that he seemed to have cheered up. She expressed her gladness at seeing him and said she was looking forward to what was to come. He stood alone in the moonlit forest, the weight of their promise settling upon him. His expression was no longer one of regret, but of unshakable determination. Unseen by him, his determined figure was reflected in a dark, swirling pool. An otherworldly hand reached down toward the image as a voice whispered a single word of approval. Good. The voice belonged to the mysterious woman with star-like pupils. A faint smile touched her lips as she observed his reflection, remarking that she likes children who don't know when to give up. She continued to gaze into the scrying pool, her long hair flowing around her. Her hand hovered over Kaikeru's image as she wondered aloud if it was about time for the next one. After 2 full days of rest, Kajura Kaikeru is finally recovering, eating an apple in a well-appointed room. The maid, Toganatsum, wishes him and Reize Agino a good morning and asks if he is feeling better. Kajura confirms he is, mostly thanks to Reize, who remarks that adventurers often report feeling tired after being healed by magic. As she sips her drink, Reize coolly states that she won't show weakness so easily. Toga quietly interjects that her lady was also very tired after the expedition. Hearing this, Kajura internally scoffs, recognizing Reize's statement as a lie. Her expression turns serious as she turns to face Kajura. She tells him that once things have calmed down, there is something she would like to discuss with him. The conversation among the women turns to Kajura. Reize mentioned she'd like for Tsukigase to join them, but wasn't sure if he was awake. Toga adds that she heard it was the first time he had experienced a teammate's death, finding the situation a little worrying. Reize agrees. As if on cue, Tsukigase Tsukasa arrives, cheerfully calling Kajura and Reize her big brother and big sister. She asks how he's feeling, and he assures her he's fine. Tsukasa advises him not to force himself, confiding that she was stuck in bed for days when it first happened to her. The group then departs, with Tsukasa thanking them for coming to her hometown. She offers her thanks once more, but Kajura humbly suggests his situation might not be comparable to hers. Tsukasa simply smiles and insists that she is truly fine. Later, the 3 sit together at a table. Tsukasa's expression is distant and thoughtful as she utters 2 words that hang in the air. The Origin Gate. She explains that for a long time, no one even considered entering the gate. That all changed when the incredible top party, Holy Sword, appeared. Tsukasa expresses her astonishment, saying she thought the gate was something one would only find in textbooks. Kajura listens intently, the name, Holy Sword, resonating within him. He reflects on their ultimate ambition and forms a new resolve. No matter what, he wants to be by their side when they challenge it. Seeing his somber expression, Tsukasa offers a word of encouragement. She tells him not to look so sad, reminding him that he can fulfill that wish if he gets selected to fight alongside them. Kajura remains silent, his gaze fixed and determined. He sits at a table with Reize and Tsukasa, listening intently as Reize lays out the consequences of their ambition. She explains that if their party, Vestige, is selected to participate in the Origin Gate expedition, they won't just be going to Tokyo, but into the gate itself. Reize then turns her gaze to Tsukasa, her expression serious. She warns the young girl that this endeavor will be more dangerous than anything she has ever faced. The weight of her words hangs in the air as Kajura reflects on their last expedition, a stark reminder that delving into dungeons means risking one's life. Reize presses him for a decision, asking if he will continue down this perilous path or choose to look elsewhere. She insists that he think carefully about it. Before he can formulate a response, Tsukasa's voice cuts through the tension. She declares firmly, "I'll go." Reize acknowledges that they have only just formed their party, but states that their answer now will determine whether Vestige is disbanded on the spot. She looks at Kajura with unwavering conviction, reminding him of their promise. It was a promise, she says, that they would see much of the world of adventurers together. Seeing this resolve, Reize's expression softens slightly. She declares that she won't back down at a time like this either. She elaborates on her own stake in the matter, explaining that this mission could go down in history and would be an extraordinary opportunity for the Reize family. Her gaze then settles on Kajura. She admits that she saw something in him when she chose to buy him, and she believes it a gamble worth taking. With a determined look, she proposes they take this gamble together. His eyes narrow, a silent, steely determination hardening his features as he processes their shared commitment. He finally speaks, his voice steady and firm. He acknowledges the danger he himself pointed out, but makes a solemn promise. He won't let anyone die. With their party officially formed, Reize takes the lead on planning their next steps. Now then, she begins, her expression serious, while Tsukasa looks on with bright-eyed anticipation. Kajura, seated across from them, immediately clarifies their objective. He posits that their current goal must be to become an A-rank party. Tsukasa quickly asks how one achieves such a rank. He explains the first condition. As the party's leader, he must first become an A-rank adventurer himself. He then voices his concern, questioning if the three of them are enough for the next step. Reize adds the second requirement. They must establish a record of clearing a high-rank dungeon. The weight of that task settles on him. He concedes that while clearing a dungeon with a full raid is one thing, it would be difficult for just the three of them. He elaborates that with their unorthodox composition, he would prefer to add one or two more members. On a sheet of paper, he maps out their roles, noting the clear vacancies for a rearguard. Leaning forward, he stresses the point to his companions, stating that they especially need a rearguard to round out their team. Reize agrees, adding a critical condition. Since their ultimate goal is the Origin Gate, their new recruit cannot be just anyone. The three adventurers sit together at the table, a moment of shared contemplation as they consider the difficulty of finding such a specific and capable ally. In that moment, a shared thought seems to connect them. Tsukasa, excitedly, says there's one girl that springs to her mind. Kajura, surprised, notes the coincidence as he thought of someone too. With a knowing smile, Reize suggests they all say the name together. He and his companions simultaneously spoke the name of the person they all had in mind. Yuzui, as Kaikeru, Akino, and Tsukasa all confirmed they were thinking of the same person. The focus shifts to the very individual in question, Yuzui Tru, who was holding a black card bearing a single eye emblem. Elsewhere, Yuzui was finishing a phone call. She thanked a man named Hayudu for a list of dropped items from a recent venture. After asking if she had reviewed it all, she confirmed she had, but noted with a hint of disappointment that there wasn't a blue elixir this time either. Hayudu expressed his hope that she would join them again, stating that they are always glad to have strong adventurers aboard. Yuzui politely thanked him for the invitation, remarking that she doesn't often get chances to participate in such large events. Before the call ended, Hayudu relayed a new piece of information. He told her that the members of a party called Vestige wanted to meet her, and he asked for her permission to give them her address. She paused, considering the name Vestige, before agreeing. She authorized him to give them her phone number, and added that he could also tell them which hospital she was at, should the matter be urgent. Her conversation concluded, she was greeted by her uncle. As he approached, she glanced at her phone, wondering to herself what this new party could possibly want with her. Now inside the hospital proper, she asked her uncle about her mother's condition. He reported that she was feeling quite good today and had just fallen asleep. Yuzui quietly took in the news. They stood together before a hospital room door, looking in on a sleeping patient. Her uncle turned to her and pleaded, asking her to please continue looking after her mother. As he prepared to depart, she asked if he was going back out again. With a heavy look, he confirmed it, stating that he needed to find another high-ranked dungeon as soon as he could. He stands before his niece, Yuzui Turu, his expression grim. He addresses her directly, stating that he believes it is time for her to quit being an adventurer. He continues, explaining that he heard someone died on her mission again. He apologizes, admitting his guilt for putting her in harm's way for the sake of his own ailing daughter. His plea grows more earnest as he insists that she shouldn't have to suffer. He reminds her that at her age, she should be spending time with friends, not risking her life in dungeons. His words linger in her mind, the single concept of suffering echoing as she stares into the distance. She looks up, her expression shifting as she calls out to her uncle, but the words catch in her throat. Without another word, she suddenly sprints past him, shouting an apology that she has to go. He cries out for her to wait, completely taken by surprise. She runs toward a waiting car, desperately pleading for them to let her inside. The vehicle's door slams shut and it speeds away, leaving her uncle shouting helplessly in the street. Inside the car, Reise Agino asks if she's sure about this. Yuzui Turu simply offers her thanks. Kaikeru reassures her, stating that her uncle is a good person who will understand, and promises to talk with him properly at a later time. Later, the four adventurers, Kaikeru, Agino, Tsukasa, and their new recruit, Turu, sit together on benches in a quiet park, ready to discuss their future. He sat with his companions, looking out at the distant landmark known as the Origin Gate. Beside him, Yuzui Turu wiped away her tears, still emotional after the confrontation with her uncle. Sensing her distress, he spoke gently, telling her it was a lot to take in and that she should take her time to think about it. She looked down at the onigiri in her hand, her expression shifting. She explained that her father had given it to her. Her thoughts then turned to her father's character. She spoke of his deep love for her mother, how he managed all the housework and still worked long hours every day. She concluded with heartfelt admiration that her dad was amazing. A quiet moment passed between them as they stood by the fence, gazing out at the view, breaking the silence. Her voice now firm with conviction, she declared that she would not think of adventuring and diving into dungeons as some kind of misfortune. She turned to face him, addressing him as Kajura-san. She voiced her hope that this path might be the way to save her mother, and that she would gladly accept any help in doing so. With her resolve solidified, she looked up at him and formally asked to join his party, Vestige. He met her determined gaze, accepting her request. He promised to join her in the search for an elixir, whether it was in the dungeons of Tokyo or at the Origin Gate itself. As his acceptance settled in, she mused that every single adventurer is loved by someone and carries those feelings with them. Kaikeru watched her, his expression serious as he absorbed the weight of her words. He holds a cup, his thoughts consumed by the promise he just made. He understands the weight of this new path and resolves that he must live up to that responsibility. His gaze sharpens, his expression hardening with determination. Across from him, Yuzui Turu offers a gentle, confident smile. She reaffirms their shared mission to find the blue elixir, promising that she will make it back to her mother safe and sound. With their pact solidified, the newly formed party stands together. Turu bows deeply to Kaikeru, formally stating that she looks forward to working with him as Tsukasa and Akino observe. Sometime later, at a training ground, a stone golem shatters into a cloud of dust and debris from a powerful impact. Standing over the wreckage is Reise Akino, her expression one of mild disappointment. She declares a shame, noting that her opponent was too slow. She turns away from the rubble as Kaikeru, standing at a distance, looks down at a device in his hand, seemingly having time to drill. He can only mutter in confusion at the result. As she walks, a notification appears on her own device, informing her that it's time for her A-rank license renewal. Akino groans, complaining about the pain of having to spar again and the inconvenience of the association branch being so far away. Her complaints continue as she laments living in the middle of nowhere. She finds having to help her granny around the house to be incredibly annoying. Her frustration culminates in a fierce declaration. With a determined glint in her eye, she states that she just wants to move to Tokyo already. At the Adventurers Association headquarters, Itomi Kukuri, flanked by her fellow party members, makes a formal announcement. With a stern expression, she declares that her group, Holy Sword, has returned from their cleanup duty. An older official expresses his relief, hoping the reduced monster activity will allow him to see his grandson. A man in a suit thanks the party, acknowledging that they reduced the unmanaged area in northern Kanto significantly. In the background, Ashitari Yukiko and her companion quietly remark on the president's unexpectedly sentimental side. The official's brief moment of peace is shattered as he and the man in the suit gaze out a large window. Before them, a massive, dark, swirling gate hangs ominously in the sky above the city. The official grimly states that despite their other successes, it is finally time to strike at the core. As the members of Holy Sword walk through the building, one of them quietly reflects on the official's words, understanding their true implication. An expedition to the Origin Gate. The official continues to stare at the ominous gate, his expression hardening as he recalls its appearance. He vows that he can never forget the day that thing appeared over Tokyo. Turning to face him, Itomi Kukuri seeks clarification on a critical point. She asks if it is true that clearing the Origin Gate will cause all the other gates to close as well. The official bluntly admits he has no clue, stating it's just a hypothesis. However, he confirms there's no doubt the mana leaking from the gate affects the surrounding space. The man in the suit adds that he is essentially asking them to take a gamble with no guarantee of a payoff. He then offers his gratitude and promises to do everything he can to support them. Unfazed, Itomi Kukuri replies with conviction, declaring that her party will do anything as long as it helps people. The man in the suit follows up, informing her that they have just publicized a recruitment drive for support parties for the expedition. He concedes, however, that he doesn't know how many will actually volunteer. Overhearing this, Ashitari Yukiko mutters that it doesn't bode well, calling everyone cowards. But Itomi Kukuri, with unwavering confidence, tells her not to worry, certain that people will show up by fall. A car travels down a long, straight road, heading toward a distant city under a clear sky. Inside the vehicle, Yuzui Turu thanks Kajura Kaikeru for accompanying her. He looks ahead at the road and tells her not to worry about it, as he needed to handle a license renewal anyway. He parks the car, adding that it's a great help to have someone along who is familiar with the area. After exiting the vehicle, they stand before their destination, the Hokuriku branch of the Adventurer Association. Kaikeru remarks that he has never been to this particular branch before. Inside, they approach a reception desk. The receptionist confirms Yujui's B-rank license renewal and directs her towards the ability gauging room. The receptionist then turns her attention to Kaikeru. He states his purpose plainly. He would like to take the A-rank exam. The request startles the receptionist. Composing herself, she consults her terminal. She notes that while he has reached the recommended level, there has never been an A-rank trap master before, and he is also attempting to skip a rank. She looks up and asks if he has ever used an arena for high-rank duels. He confirms that he has several times, internally crediting the experience points he gained from the recent raid. Satisfied, the receptionist informs him of the condition for his request. To skip a rank, he will need to achieve 3 victories in a row. She then directs him to proceed, handing him an access card. She explains that the training room can only be entered once a day, meaning he will have to return for at least 3 days to complete the challenge. He stood before the door to the dueling arena, contemplating the challenge ahead, the A-rank exam. His expression hardened with resolve. He knew his opponent would either be a full-fledged A-ranker or another challenger. Regardless, he decided he just had to try. Meanwhile, inside Training Room 2, his opponent received her matchup. With a sigh, the young fencer hoped for a quick win. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she read the screen. Her opponent was a trap master. Kaikeru, in turn, analyzed his opponent, Kazari Kyuko, a fencer. He saw this as the first hurdle to clear in his quest to catch up to them. He recalled that fencers are a speed-type vanguard, unlike the attack-focused soldier or defensive paladin. He felt certain he could defend against her attacks, but acknowledged that landing a hit of his own would be tricky. The title of A-ranker weighed on him. They were among the best, second only to the 5 recognized S-rankers in Japan. Moments later, the two faced each other across the grid-patterned floor of the arena. A formal announcement echoed, instructing the participants to get ready. His opponent, Kazari, sized him up with a critical eye. She had often fought trap masters in the lower ranks, she recalled, but no matter how skilled, they never appeared in A-rank exams. His presence was an anomaly, but ultimately, she decided it didn't matter. Her strategy was simple. She just had to avoid his traps. As the command to start was given, she tensed, ready to close the distance instantly. She burst forward in a blur of motion. In response, Kaikeru dropped back, slapping a hand to the floor as he initiated his counter. Trap set. Kazari recognized his textbook tactic, forcing a close-quarters fight to lure her onto a trap, and scoffed internally at the thought of being pushed around. At the same time, Kaikeru's fears were confirmed. She was as strong as he'd anticipated. He immediately began setting another trap. As she closed in, a glowing sigil materialized on the floor between them. An arrow symbol trap, now lying in wait. He watches his opponent, knowing he must surprise her further. Kazari stares in disbelief, questioning what the strange arrow symbol is. She wonders if he has set a trap on his own body, and if so, whether he would also be caught if he were to activate it. As she reels in shock, Kaikeru lunges forward, his foot stomping down to activate the trap's sigil on the arena floor. The sigil flares to life. As Kazari cries out in surprise, Kaikeru confirms his success. Her surprise instantly turns to fury, and she roars at him not to look down on her. In a blinding flash of movement, she explodes from her position, leaving the activated trap behind. He can only watch, stunned by her impossible speed. The fencer reappears some distance away, panting from the exertion. She acknowledges to herself that it was a close call. Kaikeru is aghast, realizing that she managed to dodge the trap after it had already been activated by her own step. He concludes that such a feat is insane, even for a fencer. He quickly deduces that if she possesses the ability to dodge traps post-activation, setting more is pointless. Simultaneously, Kazari identifies the arrow trap as a major problem and resolves to attack him from an angle where it cannot catch her. Putting her new strategy into motion, she dashes forward and kicks a shard of the arena floor directly at him. He defends against the debris as Kazari, unfazed, draws a pair of pistol-like weapons. She notes with surprise that his traps are effective even at a distance. The fencer's assault is overwhelming, but he knows he cannot let the duel drag on. Determined to push through, he combines an arrow symbol with a slash trap. From her position, Kazari realizes he has mixed his trap symbols to create a new effect. Despite his efforts, she evades the attack, forcing him to leap away. He is stunned by her agility, marveling at how observant and fast she is, and begins to question how a trap master like himself can even contend with her. However, the previous trap was merely a feint. As she dodges, she moves directly into the path of his second combination, an arrow, symbol, and flame, which erupts around her. The blast forces Kazari to reassess her opponent. She understands now that he can create projectiles by combining his arrow sigil with other traps. Realizing she must change her tactics, she resolves to fight him as she would a wizard, a foe she has faced countless times before. With this new strategy, she launches herself high into the air. Kaikeru looks up in alarm, realizing she is now directly above him. She descends upon him in a flurry of strikes, putting him completely on the defensive. He desperately looks for an opening to use another arrow trap, but she anticipates his move. Her eyes narrow with fierce resolve as she declares, "I won't let you." Faster than he can react, she breaks through his guard and lands a powerful strike, forcing a grunt of pain from him. The blow drives him to his knees. He acknowledges that it's been a long time since he's been so pressured, admitting to himself that her speed, power, and stamina all surpass his own. Looking down at her defeated opponent, Kazari tells him to give up, declaring that this is the end for him. As the duel reached its zenith, their final thoughts collided. The fencer, Kazari, grit her teeth, a silent apology on her lips. She had to win, to push through this battle to meet them again. At the same instant, Kaikeru, struggling against her overwhelming assault, clung to his own purpose. He had found a single, precious clue, and for the chance to follow it, he knew it was now sink or swim. In the midst of the duel, Kajura Kaikeru braces himself, skidding to a halt. He reflects on a crucial lesson he has learned through his experiences. He concludes that this is a sink or swim moment. His opponent, Kazari Kyuko, is terrifyingly fast, seemingly just watching and dodging his attacks as they come. He understands that she relies heavily on her raw physical prowess, a key weakness to exploit. Based on this analysis, his expression hardens with determination. He digs his heels in and bellows, initiating one of his skills, trap set. As Kyuko lunges forward for a stab, he shouts that he won't let her, commanding himself to ignore the immediate threat. At her feet, an arrow symbol flashes on the ground, the first part of his trap activating. The symbol erupts in a flash of light, launching a dark, star-shaped projectile directly at the fencer. Caught off guard by the sudden counter, she can only let out a frustrated grunt. The projectile strikes her squarely, causing a blinding flash on impact. She cries out, thrown off balance by the unexpected blow. With his opponent reeling, Kajura sees his opening and shouts, "Now!" He slides forward and gives a sharp tug on a hidden wire. As Kyuko realizes with dread that she has fallen for a more complex trap, the tug detonates the main charge. A massive pillar of dark energy erupts from the ground, completely engulfing the fencer in a violent blast. However, as the energy dissipates, Kyuko stands within a field of glowing particles, completely unharmed. A synthesized voice announces that the damage threshold has been surpassed, and the simulation is now ending. He looks at her, a realization dawning. He understands now that her lamp ability is not for fighting, which is why she couldn't recognize the pattern of his trap. The entire duel was not what it seemed. He stands within the dissipating digital space, formally thanking his opponent for the fight. Kazari Kyuko, however, can only stammer, her composure completely gone. Her frustration erupts. With tears in her eyes, she screams, demanding to know what he was doing and yelling that she lost. Still fuming, she complains about the immense pain of having to return on another day for a rematch before storming off with a final, exasperated shout. Kajuro watches her go, noting her menacing attitude, but surmising she must have her own circumstances. He reflects that he hadn't noticed her youth during their fight because she was so strong, just as she turns back to shout one last warning for him to remember this moment. Left alone in the quiet simulation room, he processes the outcome. He won, but he acknowledges it was only possible because he took her by surprise. He realizes he won't be able to rely on luck for all 3 of his required fights. He concludes that simply leveling up won't be enough to overcome the disparity in abilities between different job classes. He must find another method. Having left the testing facility, Kajura meets up with Yuzui Teru. She asks how his assessment went, and he admits that he barely managed to win. As they walk together, Yuzui remarks that they both did a good job. When she asks about his experience, Kajura explains that it went smoothly. The assessors just gauged his abilities, so it was over quickly. He notes that they still have time before they're supposed to meet up with the others, suggesting they can take their time. Yuzui quietly agrees. Their quiet moment is shattered by a cheerful shout of "Oni Ai-chan." Both Kajura and Yuzui are startled as Tsukage's Tsukasa runs towards them with open arms, flanked by Reize, Agino, and Toganatsu. He asks the newly arrived group why they are there. Reize explains that they finished their own business quickly and found themselves with nothing to do. Tsukasa beams, enthusiastically confirming her presence. Kajura observes that she seems to be in particularly high spirits. Her excitement boils over as she announces their destination. They are all going to the hot springs. The group arrives at the Reize Adventure Training Hall. Kajura internally questions the assignment of guarding a hot springs town. Inside, the facility is a place of intense training, where adventurers like Kazari and Tsukasa constantly hone their combat skills against one another. Reize explains the situation to Kajura and Yuzui. The hall is a joint business between her family and the Adventure Association, with a contract requiring adventurers to always be present as guards. Kajura asks for confirmation on this point. Kazari then recounts her own assessment, admitting to Kajura that she was forced onto the defensive after her stealth ability ran out. He commends her effort, and she briskly announces it's time to change. As she leaves, Tsukasa playfully challenges Kajura, calling him Oni-chan and declaring she'll beat him up too. He calmly replies that she could try. Returning to the mission details, Kajura asks if there is anything unusual about the guard duty, stating his belief that they were just supposed to clear any dungeons that might appear. Kazari clarifies this point. The dungeons that manifest there are not mandatory. They can be cleared at the discretion of the dispatched adventurers. The fencer, Kazari, confirms her intent. She wants to guarantee the safety of the hot springs town as soon as possible. Yuzui questions the approach, asking if this means foregoing any auction or management process and simply speedrunning the objective. Kazari agrees, noting it's a good deal for adventurers since they can access the dungeon immediately. As this discussion concludes, Tsukasa erupts, demanding a rematch with a handicap. Reize Akino struggles to restrain the furious girl, while Kajura looks on. Akino firmly declares, "I'm up next." Having calmed her down, Akino turns to Tsukasa and asks about the guard duty assignment, questioning if Tsukasa will handle it by herself. Akino clarifies the plan. While only 1 or 2 people will be permanently stationed there eventually, they will all start by going together for the weekend. The implication of this group trip causes Tsukasa to blush. Her expression suddenly shifts from embarrassment to pure, wide-eyed realization. A single, joyous thought dawns on her. They can bathe in the hot springs. She throws her arms up in celebration, shouting her love for hot springs. In the background, Kajura quietly wonders if having such an ulterior motive for the mission is truly acceptable. Tsukasa's excitement is palpable. She can't wait and notes they'll need to bring luggage. Meanwhile, Natsum hands the keys for a rental car to Kajura, assuring him they will handle its return. He thanks her for the assistance. The group begins their journey on foot. Kazari points out a bus stop, and Kajura explains they aren't driving because he wanted to experience the public transportation that the local residents use. As they walk, Tsukasa gazes at the town ahead, filled with curiosity about what it will look like and what kind of people live there. Her cheerful exclamation is cut short as Yuzui suddenly stops. The girl clutches her head, a wave of distress washing over her. She internally admits her hatred for encountering large groups of people, a feeling made worse by her current unwell state. Amidst the commotion of the crowded station, Kajura Kaikeru bumps into another traveler, Kazuri Kyuko, and quickly offers an apology. She looks up, her eyes widening in recognition as she identifies him. Kajura, equally surprised by her exclamation, stares back. Her surprise quickly hardens into a look of intense focus as the bus they are both waiting for arrives at the stop, its destination announced over the speaker. Once aboard and seated, Kajura feels an unnerving stare. He glances back to find Kazari glaring at him from a few rows behind. He feels a growing sense of awkwardness under her scrutiny, while she internally notes that he is traveling with his party. Indeed, he is seated in the middle of his all-female group, with Tsukasa on one side and Akino and Yuzui on the other. This sight fuels Kazari's internal monologue. She is incensed at having lost to what she perceives as a carefree playboy. Kajura, catching her glare again, can only wonder what he possibly did to offend her so deeply. The tense silence is broken when Tsukasa cheerfully leans in, offering Kajura a snack and calling him Oni-chan. Kazari's eyes widen at the term. She quickly assesses them, concluding that they bear no resemblance to siblings. This leads her to a horrifying new conclusion. Her face contorts with disgust as she internally brands him a Lilican as well, recoiling at the gross thought. She recoils internally, sensing a disturbing aura from the group ahead. Bloodlust? But why? Unaware of her scrutiny, Reize asks Kajura how his meeting with the young lady of the Kiryuin family went. The question brings a memory to Riiziai's mind. She recalls that Kiryuin Jessica was doing better than she had feared. Jessica herself had been resolute, declaring that she wouldn't let failure deter her and vowing to become a proper lady worthy of her family's name, lest she be unable to face their employees. Back in the present, Reize dismisses the concern, telling Kajura his worry isn't funny and asking if he thinks she'll get fired since it was her responsibility. Kajura simply replies that he understands and expresses his hope that Jessica becomes a great adventurer. His comment catches the ear of Kazari, who leans forward from her seat. She asks if they know the person they're discussing. Kajura turns slightly and begins to explain that they don't, they just... His vague answer only confirms her worst suspicions. She internally brands him a pervert, feeling foolish for huddling behind him. Wondering where they are even going, she desperately wishes they would just get off the bus already. As if in answer to her wish, the bus arrives at its final station. Kajura and his companions, Reize, Tsukasa, and Yuzui, disembark, leaving a silent Kazari to watch them from her window. Stepping into the town, Tsukasa immediately exclaims how charming it is. Kajura looks on with a gentle expression, while Kazari, still observing from a distance, maintains her hardened glare. After getting off the bus herself, she sees the group walking ahead and calls out, asking where they're going. Reize turns and points, indicating that their destination is that way. As they continue on, Tsukasa asks about the inn where they'll be staying. Reize announces its name, Kazari Garden. The name strikes Kazari like a bolt of lightning. The name also sparks a flicker of recognition in Kajura. He murmurs the name Kazari to himself, trying a place where he has seen or heard it before. He and his party stepped into the inn, finding themselves directly behind the fencer they had been following. The young woman, Kazuri Kyuko, announced her return, only to be immediately met by an older woman in a kimono. The woman, her mother, demanded to know where she had been on such a busy day, but Kyuko curtly told her to be quiet. The innkeeper's attention then shifted past her daughter to the new arrivals. Her stern expression softened as she spotted Kajura and Tsukasa, welcoming them to her humble inn. Before Kyuko could slip away, her mother called out sharply for her to hold up. She then gave her daughter a direct order. Now that she was here, she was to show the customers around. To enforce the command, the woman briskly tied an apron around Kyuko, who looked on in bewilderment. As Kajura watched the exchange with a hint of amusement, Kyuko asked what was happening. In a sudden shift, Kyuko's demeanor completely changed. With the apron on, she turned to Kajura and Tsukasa with a bright, professional smile, cheerfully announcing that she would show them to their rooms. She addressed them with an exaggerated sweetness, calling them her dear customers, the abrupt transformation from annoyed daughter to perfect hostess hanging in the air. At the inn, the proprietor begins the tour for Kajura and his companions. Kajura expresses his annoyance, questioning why he has to show that idiot around. The innkeeper, Kazari's mother, calmly explains the layout, noting the bathrooms and the fire escape, which is only for emergencies. She continues down the hall, indicating Kajura's two-person room, and further on, the three-person room designated for the girls. As they settle in, Tsukasa cheerfully announces to Kajura that they'll be staying over. Nearby, Kyuko watches them, blushing and flustered, internally concluding that Kajura is dating a girl so young. Her misunderstanding fuels her anger. Peeking out from a doorway as Tsukasa and Yuzui walk past, Kyuko mutters that when going to hot springs with friends, one should separate by gender, calling Kajura a filthy pervert. Later, Kajura approaches the innkeeper again. He asks for any pertinent information, clarifying that he wants to understand the inn's security, common gathering spots, and if there is anywhere with a good view. Kyuko overhears his question and interrupts with manic enthusiasm. She confirms there is a view, excitedly pointing out a crack and a manhole cover visible from the veranda that leads to an underground storage area. Her strange behavior prompts Tsukasa to ask Kajura what he did to the girl. He has no idea, but Kyuko is visibly agitated, still stewing over her loss to him in their spar earlier that day. Upon hearing this, Tsukasa's eyes widen in amazement. She realizes that if Kyuko lost, then she must be an A-rank adventurer. Kyuko looks away, offering a quiet, almost reluctant thanks for the compliment. Energized by this revelation, Tsukasa leaps towards Kyuko, enthusiastically asking to be friends. Kyuko flatly rejects the offer, coldly stating that she does not make friends with weaklings. Tsukasa protests that her words are mean, but Kyuko is unmoved. She declares that she doesn't care, as she plans to make friends when she leaves for Tokyo, boasting that she's already been on several expeditions. Observing the exchange, Kajura notes to himself that Kyuko seems quite talented. The tense standoff between the two young women continues. Kyuko, with a sharp glare, tells Tsukasa that if she's so eager, she should find her way out of the countryside and go live in Tokyo. Tsukasa, refusing to back down, retorts that it must be nice for Kyuko to be an ignorant kid, but she has her own circumstances to deal with. In the doorway, Kajura and Yuzui watch the confrontation unfold. Her anger flaring, Tsukasa shouts that Kyuko has no room to talk, having lost to her Oni-chan. She confidently declares that she would win if they were to fight again. Kyuko, incensed by the reminder of her defeat, points accusingly, demanding to know what the bizarre arrow was that Tsukasa used, a skill completely unknown to her. She continues her tirade, insisting that Tsukasa should have such an unusual ability investigated before even thinking of teaming up with others. The accusation leaves Tsukasa momentarily speechless. The word bizarre echoes in Tsukasa's mind. Standing with Yuzui, she quietly repeats Kyuko's accusation, pondering the nature of her own arrow skill. Having vented her frustration, Kyuko turns away with an exasperated sigh. She curtly tells Kajura and his party that she is leaving and bids them to enjoy their stay before walking off down the hall. He watches her depart, her final words about the bizarre arrow echoing in his thoughts as well. He considers the term, a thoughtful expression on his face. Just as she disappears, Kyuko suddenly peeks back around the corner, catching Kajura by surprise as he looks up. Her demeanor softening slightly, she offers them some unsolicited advice. She tells them that if they want a nice view, they should take a right outside the inn and walk until they see a large bridge. She adds that in front of the bridge, an old woman sells delicious manju and insists they should go buy some. Following her directions, Tsukasa and Yuzui find themselves by the scenic bridge. Tsukasa notes with a hint of amusement that Kyuko did end up helping them after all, to which Yuzui simply scoffs. Unseen by them, Kyuko is elsewhere, tears of frustration streaming down her face. She lets out a long sigh of relief, sinking into the warm water of the bath. As the steam rises around her, Kyuko admits to herself that she is a little surprised by the day's events. Her thoughts drift to Tsukasa's ability, recalling the swirling dark energy. It truly is a surprising skill. Elsewhere in the baths, Tsukasa herself comments to Yuzui that there is still much to learn about skills and jobs, as new unique abilities are discovered all the time. The conversation turns to Kajura, and Yuzui wonders aloud why he was kicked out of the Holy Sword Party. The official reason was a lack of power, but she feels that cannot be the whole truth. Yuzui expresses a conflicted feeling. She wants to know more about him, but also feels it's right to leave him be. Tsukasa agrees, acknowledging that there must be certain circumstances and that it's difficult to ask him directly. Meanwhile, Kyuko, now dry her hair, watches Kajura in the men's bath area. She muses that if they continue on their current path, he might gradually start to think of them as his real party. Submerged in the water, Kajura makes a silent, determined vow. Someday, he will tell them everything. His thoughts turn to the origin of his secrets, the day he received the arrow symbol. An image of a mysterious woman with otherworldly eyes surfaces in his memory. Kyuko finishes with her hair, a confident thought crossing her mind. When Kajura finally decides to talk, she is sure they will believe him. Later, in his room at the traditional inn, Kajura discovers his phone is out of power. He recalls that chargers are only available from the reception desk. He walks through the quiet inn, wondering if anyone else is awake. He is on his way back from the bath when he is stopped by the sound of a stern voice. It is Kyuko's mother, confronting her daughter. She accuses Kyuko of lying and going to a dungeon again. The source of the voice, Kazari's mother, stands with a severe expression, her posture rigid with disapproval. Opposite her, Kyuko remains silent, her expression a mixture of defiance and frustration. Her mother's patience snaps. She demands that Kyuko speak up, questioning why it doesn't seem to matter what she says. With a downcast look, Kyuko quietly clarifies that it wasn't a dungeon she visited today. From the hallway, Kajura recognizes the intensity of the fight and feels it would be difficult to interrupt. The mother presses on, ignoring the clarification and asking if Kyuko has done her studies. When Kyuko dismisses the concern, saying it's fine as long as she graduates, her mother retorts that of course it matters. The woman's expression hardens as she zeroes in on the core issue. With narrowed eyes, she asks if Kyuko is still thinking about going to Tokyo. Her mother immediately forbids it, pleading with her to be anything but an adventurer. She declares that she will not allow it, insisting that Kyuko would never be able to live that kind of life. This final declaration causes Kyuko to erupt. She shouts back, furiously questioning why her mother gets to decide her fate. "It's my life," she screams, "so let me do what I want." The raw emotion of the fight strikes a nerve with Kajura. He winces as the argument brings back a flood of his own bad memories, recalling how others had also tried to stop him from becoming an adventurer. His gaze softens as he looks at Kyuko, understanding her desire to be a full-time adventurer and the hard work she must have put in. He reflects that being an adventurer is not a well-regarded job, and that few can sustain it for more than a decade. A sad realization dawns on him. While he had the Holy Sword Party, Kyuko is all alone in her fight. The argument continues with her mother's desperate plea. She begs Kyuko to stop putting herself in danger, her voice filled with worry as she asks what would happen to Theron if something were to happen to her. He continues to listen as the argument reaches its breaking point. Kyuko, her voice strained with emotion, shouts at her mother. If inheriting the inn is so important, she declares, then her mother can find someone else to be her daughter. Her mother recoils, stunned by the outburst. From his hiding spot, Kajura flinches, caught off guard by the raw intensity of the family drama. As her mother calls out her name in shock, Kyuko unleashes her final, cutting remark, screaming that she hopes the inn goes bankrupt. Despite her furious words, tears stream down her face, revealing the deep pain beneath her anger. Overwhelmed, she turns and runs, dashing past Kajura who stands frozen in the hallway. He watches her retreat, a thoughtful expression on his face as she disappears into the night. Moments later, Kyuko stands alone on an outdoor veranda, gazing up at the star-filled sky. She is startled by a voice from behind her. "Is Kajura?" Turning, she asks with suspicion if he came just to make fun of her. He denies this, stating plainly that he came to cheer her up. Confused, she asks why he would do such a thing. He simply replies that it felt like something he should do. She leans against the railing, considering his words. She mentions that she's heard about him, one of the hired guard adventurers. She then adds a dismissive comment, calling it a nice job for a pipsqueak weaker than her. Her gaze averted, Kyuko responds to Kajura's question about her motivations for being a full-time adventurer. She states plainly that it's because she is good at it, challenging him with the question of whether that is so bad. Leaning on the balcony railing under the night sky, she elaborates, admitting that being an adventurer is the only thing she was ever truly the best at. She turns her back to him, her silhouette framed by the stars. She confesses that it has always been her dream to be in a place where she can shine the brightest, concluding that it is her only choice. Her expression hardens with fiery determination. She declares that even after seeing the top adventurers in Tokyo, she still feels she can catch up to them. Her ultimate goal, she proclaims, is to one day even defeat the famed Holy Sword Party. Sensing his quiet observation, she challenges him, asking if he doesn't believe her. She quickly dismisses the thought, stating it's fine because she is used to being alone. Kajura simply acknowledges her words with a quiet, "I see." Her voice swells with passion. Clutching a hand to her chest, she shouts that she believes in herself, and even if she is never given a chance, she will never give up. Her declaration hanging in the air, she suddenly leaps from the balcony, launching herself into the darkness. She moves with incredible speed, becoming a blur of energy that streaks away from the inn. The final exchange that triggered her flight is revealed. Kajura had tried to offer a different perspective, suggesting that he didn't think her mother's issue was a lack of belief. Kyuko had retorted furiously, demanding to know what he could possibly understand, as they had only just met. Her trail of light vanishes into the distant night, a testament to the speed and finality of her departure. She suddenly halts, her flight interrupted by a powerful sensation. Her eyes widen as she recognizes the feeling, a surge of mana. Kajura, having followed her, stands just behind, his expression mirroring her alarm as the air around them crackles with a dark, volatile energy. Pinpointing the source of the disturbance, she points toward an open gate in a nearby wall and shouts for him to look. Without hesitation, they both sprint in that direction. As they draw closer, the origin of the mana becomes terrifyingly clear. A swirling, dark portal has torn open the fabric of space before them. Kyuko identifies it with a gasp. A gate. He stares intently at the unstable vortex, a sense of unease growing. "Wait," he calls out, his analytical mind kicking in. Something strange. He questions if the gate was just created moments ago. Before he can analyze further, his question is answered as the gate begins to disgorge its contents. A bizarre, spherical white monster with a single slit for an eye and a long, lolling tongue emerges, its appearance almost cartoonishly absurd. It is not alone. A flood of other equally strange creatures, including one resembling a malevolent teddy bear, begins to pour from the portal. Kajura's face twists in alarm as Kyuko shouts a dire warning, identifying the phenomenon not just as a simple gate, but a stampede dungeon. A historical account recalls the time shortly after dungeons first appeared, when monsters began to suddenly attack people in the mountains of Tohoku. In the present, Kajura, Kaikeru, and Kazari Kyuko run through a similar desolate, overgrown landscape. These attacks wreaked havoc on a Japan that had little experience dealing with them. The cause was identified as stampede dungeons, a rare phenomenon where monsters could enter the world directly, bypassing the usual dungeon structures. In areas where the response was too slow, people were forced to abandon their homes. Even now, the extermination campaign struggled to make headway in these blighted lands, leaving behind desolate ruins. Suddenly, that history becomes a present threat. Kajura shouts a warning as a horde of bizarre, toy-like monsters materializes before them. A large, spherical creature with a single eye and a smaller, teddy bear-like figure. Without hesitation, Kazari's expression hardens. She draws her rapier, her body already coiled to spring into the fray. She launches herself forward with incredible speed, a blur of motion aimed at the large spherical beast. Watching her go, Kajura marvels at her swiftness. Beside him, Tsukage's Tsukasa calls out his name, identifying the impossible event unfolding before them as a stampede dungeon. As the chaos begins, a memory of the mysterious woman's words echoes in Kajura's mind. She had warned him that what he'd faced before was just the start, and that more would come soon. Elsewhere, Jessica Kiryuin takes command of the other adventurers. She orders Reize to handle the evacuation, tells Toga-san to contact the association, and calls out to Tsukage and Yuzui, preparing a coordinated response. Back with his group, Kajura stands firm with Tsukasa and Yuzui. He steals his resolve and declares loudly that they will stop the monsters right here. Having already charged ahead, Kazari glances back, her face a mask of shock and confusion as she questions why a stampede is happening in this specific location. She recalls the fundamental rule drilled into all adventurers. When encountering a stampede dungeon, one must fight the monsters directly in front of the gate. The logic is simple and grim. If the monsters manage to break past the defensive line and scatter into the world, the casualties would be immense. Compounding the danger, these dungeons are notoriously difficult, making a swift victory impossible. As the first wave of toy-like creatures surges forward, Kajura shouts a warning that they are coming, bracing for the initial clash alongside the mysterious woman. In response, Kazari glances back at them, declaring that they look strong and will be fine without her before turning her back to face the horde alone. Her words stun Kajura as he realizes her intent. She means to clear the dungeon by herself. He lunges, grabbing her arm and yelling for her to stop, questioning if she intends to die. She violently shrugs him off, demanding he let go. Pushing him aside, she continues her solitary charge, cutting down the first few monsters in her path. As she fights, Kazari screams back at him, her voice filled with fury. She asks if he truly expects her to just stand by and watches her family's and is destroyed. Kajura is left speechless. He can only scream her name, Kazari, as she vanishes into the fray. At his side, the mysterious woman looks up at him, addressing him as Oni-chan. Her unexpected words snap him back to the present. She informs him that she contacted the association, but since they are in the countryside, reinforcements will take half an hour. Kajura realizes this is too long, yet he cannot leave the gate undefended. He is paralyzed by the choice. Chasing after Kazari is no guarantee of survival and would put the mysterious woman in greater danger. As he hesitates, she looks at him sternly and tells him to grow up. As he stands frozen, the mysterious woman runs past him into the dungeon, calling out, Oni-chan. Snapping him out of his stupor, Tsukasa grabs his attention, shouting a proposal. They should split up. She correctly intuits his desire, asking if he wants to go after the fencer. She urges him to go, pointing out that the fencer is all alone in the dungeon. Tsukasa tries to reassure him, arguing that even if a few monsters slip by, Akino is protecting the townspeople, so he doesn't need to worry about the gate. He turns his attention to Yuzui, who calls his name. The implication of their plan dawns on him, and he begins to protest, realizing the danger they would be in if he left, saying, "But then you would be." Before he can finish his objection, she cuts him off forcefully, declaring that it is now his turn to place his trust in her. Her expression softens but remains resolute as she explains her reasoning with a simple, powerful statement. She trusts him. She continues, reminding him of their shared identity as vestige. It is their nature, she explains, to challenge the most difficult paths together. His hesitation finally breaks. Looking at both Tsukasa and Yuzui, he shouts his agreement, but immediately follows it with a warning for them to be careful. In response, Yuzui cautions him that the dungeon is a high-level one. Tsukasa, however, beams with confidence, telling him to leave the gate's defense to them. With a final, grateful shout, he turns and sprints past them, plunging into the mouth of the Stampede dungeon. Behind him, Yuzui and Tsukasa prepare to hold the line. He emerges into the dungeon's strange interior, a surreal landscape filled with bizarre, toy-like monsters. He scans the area frantically, but there is no sign of the fencer. The horrifying realization hits him. She must be even deeper inside. He sprints through the bizarre world of toys, noting a clear path forward. As he runs, he quickly sets an arrow symbol trap, preparing for the dangers ahead. His mind races, considering the dungeon's high level. The boss could be a monstrous marionette Alice or a deadly killing chair. He knows such foes would be incredibly difficult to face alone. Continuing his advance, he leaps onto a large toy block and sets another trap, his movements swift and practiced. Suddenly, a toy monkey with clashing cymbals springs to life directly in front of him, its stitched grin wide. He recoils in shock, caught completely off guard. The force of the surprise attack sends him stumbling backward. He cries out as the toy blocks beneath his feet shatter, plunging him down into the chaos. Landing in a heap of toys, he looks around frantically. A horrifying realization dawns on him. In this place, he can't tell what's a monster and what's just an object. The situation is dire. He understands that setting traps carelessly is too dangerous when he can't even be sure if he's on solid ground. His determination hardens. Knowing Kazari's speed, she must be even further inside. He can't afford to waste any more time just getting to her, and begins to carve a path through the enemy horde. Meanwhile, deeper within the dungeon, Kazari grits her teeth, her expression one of intense strain. The mysterious woman with flowing white hair materializes before Kajura Kaikeru. "Here," she says, her voice echoing in the strange space. "It's what you've been waiting for." Kaikeru looks up, his eyes widening in shock at her sudden appearance. He recoils, a jolt of recognition running through him. This sensation, he thinks, his mind racing. It's the same as back then. The familiarity of the power unnerves him as he questions what is happening. His gaze falls to a device in his hand, which now displays a notification. A new item has been added to his inventory, a card identified as arrow symbol. The card's primary function is clearly stated, mid-air deployment. Kaikeru stares, sweat beading on his brow as the implication sinks in. He has just been granted a new skill. He immediately questions the circumstances. Could it be a coincidence? Or is it the work of that girl again? He dismisses the idea of chance. The timing is far too convenient. His contemplation is cut short as he leaps through the chaotic space, narrowly avoiding the lunge of a toy-like monster. From a distance, the mysterious woman watches with a faint smile, chuckling to herself and wondering if he truly has time to hesitate. Her amusement is punctuated by the sound of Kaikeru crying out as one of the monsters lands a blow. He realizes he wouldn't be able to catch up without using this new power. An innate understanding of the arrow symbol floods his mind. Resigned, he accepts the necessity of the gift. "Fine, certainly," he thinks. With a burst of resolve, he shouts into the void, his voice echoing with conviction. "I'll trust you," he declares to the unseen benefactor. "I don't know what you want, but it seems you want me to rescue that girl too." He immediately puts the new power to use, calling out the activation command, trap set, a symbol. In the background, the mysterious woman who granted him this power watches with a faint, knowing smile. Instead of forming on a surface, the trap materializes in the empty space above the monsters. A glowing, circular sigil with an arrow pointing down. This is the power of mid-air deployment. The glowing symbol hovers directly above one of the bizarre, toy-like monsters, which continues its advance, completely oblivious to the danger now suspended over its head. With a simple gesture, he triggers the trap. A blast of energy erupts from the symbol, striking the creature below with pinpoint accuracy. As he propels himself through the air, a look of sheer astonishment crosses his face. He realizes this new ability is absolutely insane. He quickly processes the implications. Previously, he needed a physical surface to place his traps. Now, he can deploy them anywhere in midair, at any angle he desires. This realization changes everything for Trapmaster. Soaring above the chaotic landscape of toy monsters, he understands that all of space has just become his personal terrain. However, his next attempt proves less successful. He tries to place a trap on a moving target, but it misses, striking the ground uselessly. He grits his teeth, realizing with frustration that it's weirdly difficult to aim. The mental strain is immediate and intense. The sheer number of possibilities for where to place each trap is overwhelming his brain, and a wave of nausea washes over him. He feels like he might throw up. He looks out over the advancing horde. Despite the difficulty and the mental fatigue, he knows there's no time to practice. He will have to master this power on the fly. He looks up towards the massive gate, sweat beading on his face, his expression a mask of fierce resolve. He shouts a promise to those who have gone ahead, vowing that he will catch up to them, and pleading for them to remain safe until he arrives. Elsewhere on the battlefield, the fencer Kazari Kyuko stands her ground. With a grimace of determination and a fresh scratch on her cheek, she prepares for combat, her very presence causing one of the strange, toy-like monsters to tremble in fear. On a bridge crowded with fleeing civilians, a man in a suit struggles against those holding him back. He desperately points towards the danger zone, shouting that his daughter has gone missing. Nearby, Jessica Kiryuin attempts to maintain order, urging people to stay calm and evacuate to the other side. His face twists in anguish as he screams, his voice raw with desperation, vowing retribution if any harm comes to her. Meanwhile, deep within the dungeon, the fencer Kazari Kyuko dispatches a monster with a swift strike. Her eyes widen with determined realization as she spots her destination. She has found the boss room and is confident her speed is enough to clear the dungeon and seal the gate in time. In another place, or perhaps another state of mind, Hagane Ko stands alone. She gazes silently at a grand, ethereal castle under a night sky filled with the faint outlines of constellations, a moment of profound stillness. Back in the dungeon, a small, star-shaped puppet wobbles near the ground. Further down the corridor, a cloaked figure stands before a doorway, and a faint click echoes through the chamber. The figure is revealed to be a girl with an unsettling, doll-like appearance. Her eyes are vacant, her nose unnaturally long and pointed. She moves with a mechanical, clicking gait, a small puppet dangling from one hand. As the doll-like girl makes a small puppet sway on its strings, Kazari observes from a distance. Her eyes narrow as she identifies the strange being before her simply as a doll. Her expression hardens. With a bead of sweat on her temple, she offers a curt apology, knowing she cannot afford to be delayed. The doll-like figure continues to manipulate its puppet, poised for a confrontation. With a defiant shout, Kazari declares she doesn't have time to watch a performance. She lunges forward, her rapier a silver streak aimed directly at the strange puppeteer. Her blade flashes through the air, slicing cleanly through a trio of toy-like monsters, a panda and two bears, that suddenly appear to block her path. She deflects another attack, shouting that there are other monsters present. But as she glances at her true opponent, she realizes with a start that this is no ordinary monster. Her gaze fixes on the still, doll-like figure standing serenely at a distance, the clear source of the chaos. The realization hits her with full force. The girl with the long nose isn't just another creature. She is the puppet master controlling everything. With her true target identified, she roars for the swarming minions to get out of her way, cutting through the toy-like monsters. As she advances, a taut, nearly invisible thread catches on her rapier and snaps, revealing a hidden danger. Another thread strikes her arm, deflecting harmlessly but confirming the puppeteer's strategy of entanglement. She pushes onward, weaving through the field of animated toys in a desperate sprint toward her foe. Dodging another attack, she confirms her suspicion. There are threads hidden inside the stuffed animals, and they are trying to snare her. She twists through the air, realizing the filaments are almost invisible to the naked eye. A grim thought surfaces, she cannot avoid them forever. She observes that the puppet master's own mobility is limited. Seeing an opportunity, she resolves that if she can just get within reach, she can win. With that, she leaps over the horde, directly toward her target. Her desperate leap falls short, sending her tumbling down into the mass of toy-like monsters. She cries out in frustration as she crashes amongst them. Despite the fall, her resolve remains unbroken. She grits her teeth, knowing she cannot afford to be defeated here. But as she tries to move, she finds herself hoisted into the air, her limbs splayed and held fast by invisible forces. The puppet master watches impassively from below as the fencer realizes with dawning horror that she is completely paralyzed, unable to lift even a finger. To her shock, her arm jerks upward against her will. The puppet master gives a subtle tug on her strings, manipulating Kazari's body like a marionette. A single, taut thread is wrapped around the hilt of her rapier, which she still clutches in her hand. The thread pulls, forcing her wrist to whirl around in an unnatural motion. Helplessly, she watches as her own arm raises the rapier high. The puppet master's control is absolute, and a cold dread fills Kazari as she understands the creature's intent. Her arm is forced back, positioning the point of her own blade to strike her down. In a final moment before the fatal thrust, the threads are severed. Kujura Kaikeru appears before her, a strange, dissipating sword in his hand. He declares that he made it just in time, the remnants of a shattered trap gate visible behind him. He now stands between the fencer and her would-be killer. The puppet master's head turns with an audible creak, its attention fixed on the newcomer. On the ground, Kazari can only stare, utterly stunned by the appearance of her savior. He stood firm, his shadowy blade having just severed the invisible threads. The puppeteer's control, once absolute, was momentarily broken. Nearby, Kazuri Kyuko's hand twitched around the hilt of her rapier as sensation returned. The two now faced each other across the desolate space. With a strained expression, Kazari confirmed his suspicions, explaining that someone called Marionette Alice was using threads to puppet adventurers, controlling her movements completely. Kaikeru listened, his expression grim. She then insisted that he get out of there fast, pointing out the futility of fighting her when he knew he couldn't win. The strength and skills of a controlled adventurer, she warned, remained just as powerful under the puppeteer's influence. He remained silent, his gaze unwavering. Kazari's frustration mounted as she asked if he really had time to worry about her. She admitted that she was the one who had barged in alone, taking a risk because she thought someone might need help. His voice finally cut through the tension, shouting that he could never just run off and leave her die. Shocked by his resolve, Kazari screamed back that if he stayed, he would die too. Ignoring her desperate plea, he declared his intention. "Don't give up just yet," he yelled, announcing his skill, aerial extension. He promised to get her out of there, telling her to hold on tight as a glowing trap materialized on the floor, its arrow pointing skyward. Kazari could only stare in disbelief. Before she could question it, she realized the traps were floating in midair. One shot passed her with a sharp sound, causing her to cry out as it narrowly avoided her. He watched her movements intently. The threads were still dragging her through the air, but she wasn't as fast as she had been on the ground. Seeing his chance, he moved to intercept, his dark blade meeting her rapier in a shower of sparks. The impact sent a jolt through him as her blade grazed him, but his own strike found its target. He had managed to sever another thread. Gritting his teeth through the pain, he realized this was his opportunity to slice through the rest once and for all. Following his attack, Kazari felt a twitch. Her left arm was free. A spark of hope ignited in her eyes as she realized she could fight back. With newfound determination, she raised her rapier, preparing to cut the remaining threads herself. With her arm momentarily free, she lunges, attempting to sever the remaining puppet strings with her rapier. However, her movements are still hampered, and she grunts in frustration as the attack goes wide, failing to connect. Kaikeru watches her near miss with frustration, realizing it was so close. As he parries another toy monster, Kazari is yanked back into the air, her brief window of opportunity gone. From a distance, the puppeteer, Marionette Alice, observes the scene without a change in expression. His attention is forced back to his own fight as he finds himself surrounded by a crowd of the bizarre toy creatures. He realizes with growing concern that no matter how many he cuts down, they get rebound, regenerating, or being replaced almost instantly. He internally admits the situation is not good. His own stamina is a pressing issue, but the immense mana consumption from using his aerial expansion skill is proving to be just as draining, limiting his options. The battlefield is revealed in its entirety, a surreal landscape dominated by a towering toy castle. Kazari stands amidst an army of toy soldiers and stuffed animals, once again a puppet, while Marionette Alice herself stands atop the castle, the calm center of the storm she commands. Staring down the overwhelming odds, his expression hardens. He knows he cannot fight for long in a battle of attrition. A new plan is needed, and he has to think of it now. Observing Kujura Kaikeru's effortless movements amidst the chaos, Kazari Kyuko could only think one word: amazing. She realized with dawning clarity that it wasn't just that his abilities were unique. She could tell, just by looking, that he had a perfect grasp on the range and duration of all his traps, a level of mastery only achievable by someone who had used them not just thousands, but tens of thousands of times. And yet, despite his profound skill, she knew they were in dire straits. The sheer number of toy-like monsters swarming them was overwhelming. He felt the pressure mounting. He knew he couldn't hold out for long, and that he somehow had to cut all the strings that were manipulating Kazari. In a burst of motion, he unleashed a wide, arcing attack, an arrow symbol slash that cut through the air before him. The attack barely made a dent. He had cut down only a few of the hundreds of monsters. Realizing that attacking at random was futile, he decided he had to target the source, the puppeteer lurking in the background. He forced himself to remain calm, confident that an opportunity to close the distance would present itself. Gripping his weapon tightly, he identified his moment. Now, he lunged, sending a targeted arrow symbol projectile hurtling towards one of the spherical monsters. His true intent was revealed. He taunted the puppeteer, explaining that since her string was attached to the monster he struck, he could now interfere with her directly. As he spoke, Kazari stumbled, her balance thrown off. She realized he had slowed her down on purpose, creating an opening as he shouted. Now! The puppeteer, Marionette Alice, could only gasp in shock. Seizing the moment, Kaikeru charged forward, shouting Kazari's name. He lunges forward, but his plan is violently interrupted. The puppeteer's strings, instead of releasing Kazari, lash out as if to kill her. He recoils in shock, questioning why the enemy would suddenly try to destroy its own asset. His momentary hesitation is met by the puppeteer's smug expression. He realizes with a grimace that he has been outplayed and has blown his chance. Instead of capitalizing on the opening he had created, his instinct had been to shield Kazari from the lethal attack, a move that cost him his advantage. As he processes the event, a realization dawns on him. It was a bluff. The puppeteer never intended to kill her. Doing so would mean losing a valuable piece in the fight against him. He internally berates himself for his impulsiveness, acknowledging that he should have remained composed, but his body had simply reacted on its own. Across the room, Kazari stands, now apparently free from the puppeteer's control. Her freedom, however, does not bring relief. With a face streaked with dirt and tears of fury, she screams at Kaikeru, calling him a coward and demanding he fight his own battles. He takes her words without flinching, his focus already shifting back to the larger threat. He reasons that after that failed gambit, the puppeteer is unlikely to attempt controlling him directly again. Therefore, he concludes, the enemy's strategy will now shift. From this point on, the puppeteer will simply try to crush him with an overwhelming force of numbers until he falls. Just as he predicts the assault, a large, axe-wielding monster bypasses him and charges directly at the defenseless Kazari. Without a second's hesitation, he throws himself in front of her, absorbing the full impact of the blow with a pained grunt. The force of the strike sends him stumbling back. Kazari watches, her expression a mixture of shock and horror, as the horde of toy-like monsters closes in, their assault unending. She screams at him, her voice tight with panic, pleading for him to just run away. But Kaikeru's gaze is steady as he calls her name, Kazari. He reminds her of his earlier words, asking if she'd forgotten his instruction not to give up. He continues, his tone firm, explaining that he needs her help to defeat their foe. He appeals to her own motivation, her desire to protect her home, and tells her to keep her eyes open and not miss the chance he is about to create. Even as he speaks, a monstrous toy-like creature lunges, its claws tearing into his side. Kazari's eyes widen in horror as she watches him take the blow. Ignoring the wound, he roars, now. He grabs Kazari from behind, pulling her into position as a glowing arrow symbol materializes in the air before them. From her vantage point, the puppeteer's eyes widen in disbelief. She realizes Kaikeru's trap wasn't just for her puppets. He used it on both of them, aiming the attack directly at her location. The energy erupts. The puppeteer lets out a cry of shock as the blast slams into her, simultaneously tearing through the building she was standing in front of. The technique is revealed. Arrow symbol plus slash. Kaikeru, holding Kazari tight, becomes a human projectile, propelled through the shattered room by the force of his own ability. Their trajectory carries them straight through the wall of an adjacent tower. As they hurtle through the air amidst splintering bricks, Kaikeru realizes with dread that he cannot dodge the falling debris. In a final, desperate act, he twists his body in midair, absorbing the full impact of the collapsing structure to shield Kazari from harm. Lying in the rubble, he looks down with a pained expression. He ended up looking lame at the end, he thinks to himself. Beneath him, Kazari stares up at his face. Lying beneath him, Kazari's gaze was not one of fear, but of hardened resolve. She looked past his injuries and self-doubt, dismissing them with a single, firm word. Nonsense. Her declaration hung in the air as the full scope of their predicament came into view. Across the rubble-strewn plaza, Marionette Alice stood upon a rooftop, her invisible strings already spreading out to manipulate her legion of toy-like monsters. As they took in the scene, Kaikeru shifted, a pained groan escaping his lips. The movement drew Kazari's immediate attention, and she called out to him with sharp concern. He tried to brush it off, insisting he had only pushed himself too hard and that the real fight was just beginning. Kazari listened, but her eyes told a different story. She could sense that he was not only hurt, but that something else was fundamentally wrong. Ignoring her unspoken apprehension, Kaikeru's focus remained locked on their foe. He leaned closer, revealing that there was a specific trick to defeating Marionette Alice. He explained the grim logic of their situation, Dodging all the invisible strings was impossible, and one would eventually ensnare them. He proposed a dangerous counter-strategy. When one of them was inevitably controlled, the other's duty would be to immediately sever the puppeteer's string. With the plan laid out, he made a crucial admission. Acknowledging his weakened state, he told her he would have to leave the front line fighting to her. He looked her directly in the eyes and asked if she could do it. Her response was instant and fierce, her confidence burning away any doubt as she retorted, "Who do you think you're talking to?" Her absolute resolve was all the answer he needed. Rising to their feet together, Kazari let out a defiant shout, rallying them both with a simple, brutal goal. "Let's go smash that doll." With that, they charged. Kazari surged ahead, rapier poised, with Kaikeru following closely behind. From her distant perch, Marionette Alice reacted, her hands dancing as she sent her puppets scuttling forward on invisible threads to meet the assault. He charged forward, Kazari keeping pace perfectly beside him. Together, they deflected the incoming barrage of sharp, dark attacks, moving as a single, coordinated unit. As they ran, he was struck by her skill. He knew how difficult it was for the vanguard to maintain awareness of the entire battlefield, yet she was doing it flawlessly. Without even looking at him, she was perfectly matching his speed. A thought crystallized in his mind. She would be an incredible ally to have. "Nice job," he called out, a genuine compliment amidst the chaos. Spurred on by his praise, Kazari surged ahead. Her rapier moved with blinding speed, deflecting a dense volley of attacks that rained down upon them and creating a shield of steel. Her charge found its mark. The tip of her rapier didn't strike flesh, but wood, slamming into the puppeteer's control bar. The impact sent cracks, spiderwebbing across its surface, shattering the instrument to control. From above, Marionette Alice's limbs descend like a forest of spears, prompting Kajura Kaikeru to cry out in shock. Beside him, Kazuri Kyuko urges caution, admitting she has never seen such an attack before. Kaikeru realizes with dread that they likely waited too long, allowing some kind of timer to activate this new ability. Her doll-like body hangs suspended as her arms and legs, unnaturally extended, whip through the air like a flurry of blades. Kyuko reacts instantly, her rapier a silver blur as she expertly parries the storm of incoming strikes, sending sparks flying with each block. She pushes forward into the high-speed exchange, her expression one of fierce exhilaration. This is fantastic, she thinks, finally getting the chance to truly fight this opponent. Watching from the sidelines, Kaikeru grits his teeth. He realizes the combatants are moving far too quickly for him to intervene directly, and he desperately searches for something he can do to help. As Kyuko continues to defend, she analyzes the dire situation. Alice's reach with her extended limbs is far greater than her own. To win, she understands she must somehow close the distance and get near Alice's main body. Seeing Kyuko's struggle, Kaikeru takes action. He invokes a skill, aerial extension, flame, causing several glowing, circular traps to materialize in the air. He calls out a taunt to Alice, warning her to watch her movements or risk getting caught. The traps have an immediate effect. Kyuko notices that Alice is now swinging her weapon limbs closer to her own body, her movements suddenly more restricted. She recognizes the opening Kaikeru has created. With a determined glint in her eye, she thinks, in that case, and lunges forward, closing the gap in an instant. As she charges, Kaikeru stomps his foot hard on the ground. He roars the command, "Take her down." His ally, Kazari Kyuko, presses her attack against the puppeteer. With gritted teeth and unwavering resolve, she declares that she will never lose in a sword fight. She drives her rapier through Marionette Alice's torso. The doll-like body shatters on impact as Kyuko shouts that the battle is over. But her opponent doesn't fall. Instead, Alice's head snaps toward her, mouth agape in a silent scream. Kyuko's eyes widen in horror as she realizes the puppeteer's true intent, a poison needle. Before she can evade, the small star-shaped puppet held by Alice lunges forward, plunging the needle deep into Kyuko's shoulder. The puppeteer's smug expression appears, remarking that it's too bad. She won't be caught off guard a second time. The poison acts instantly, and Kyuko plummets from the sky. From his position, Kaikeru sees her fall and cries out her name in alarm. As she falls, he acts. A volley of arrows streaks upwards from his position, a precise counterattack aimed squarely at the airborne puppeteer. The arrows detonate in a fiery blast around Alice. On the ground, Kyuko grits her teeth against the pain in her shoulder and clenches her fist, shouting in triumph that they have won. Kaikeru lands beside her, and for a brief moment, they share a look of exhausted relief. They did it. The immediate danger has passed. Kyuko, looking away with a blush, comments on his final arrow, noting that its timing was so perfect it was downright creepy. With a weary smile, Kaikeru replies that she could have said it in a nicer way. Their conversation is cut short as a brilliant light erupts in the sky. A massive, glowing portal materializes before them. Kyuko stares in shock, identifying it as the completion gate. He stands before the completion gate with Kyuko, who realizes her family's is on the other side. He observes that while the monster spawning should cease, some may still be causing havoc at their destination. He urges her to hurry. As they prepare to cross, Kyuko closes her eyes, her face etched with concern. She silently prays for the safety of all she holds dear. With their purpose set, the pair sprints towards the shimmering portal, leaving the conquered dungeon behind them. Emerging into the night, Kyuko doesn't hesitate for a moment, running along a stone path toward a large, traditional inn. She glances back at Kaikeru, who offers a quiet congratulations for her success. Overcome with emotion, she calls him Oni-ai-chan and tearfully declares that she knew he could do it. Their safe return is witnessed by Yuzui Toru and Tsukage's Tsukasa, whose anxious expressions melt into pure relief. As Kaikeru approaches, Yuzui welcomes him back. Tsukasa, beaming with joy through her tears, exclaims that they defeated all the monsters. He looks out at the tranquil, starlit forest and quietly confirms, "Yeah, I'm back." Elsewhere, standing on a balcony, Toga Natsum lowers a glowing device. A small smile forms on her lips as she murmurs that it's a relief. Her thoughts reveal her inner turmoil. She can hardly believe that just 2 people cleared a Stampede dungeon. She had been torn between staying to protect her lady and using her stealth abilities to follow them inside. It was a difficult decision, and she is simply glad it ended without further trouble. Outside the Kazari family inn, the aftermath of the dungeon break is palpable. While an injured person is being tended to, promised that a healer will arrive soon, Kazari Kyuko stands on a small bridge, clutching her arm and wincing in pain. A sharp voice suddenly cuts through the evening air, shouting her name. It is her mother, the innkeeper, who has just spotted her daughter standing there, battered and weary. The woman rushes forward, her expression a mixture of fury and panic. Kyuko, caught off guard, can only manage a small sound of surprise as her mother closes the distance between them. Her mother grabs her by the arm, her voice trembling with emotion as she yells, calling her an idiot and demanding to know why she would do something so dangerous. She continues to scold her, insisting that Kyuko should leave such perilous work to the experts. Kyuko stares back, stunned into silence by the force of her mother's fear-fueled anger. Before the confrontation can escalate, Kaikeru steps between them. He gently places a hand on the mother's shoulder, asking her to calm down and suggesting that she should appreciate her daughter's efforts a little more. The mother looks from Kaikeru to her daughter, who has turned and begun to walk away across the bridge. As she departs, another figure, a man in a kimono and glasses, begins to speak. He, Kyuko's father, clarifies his feelings. He confesses that he was simply worried for her safety and that he doesn't care what might have happened to their house, so long as she was safe. His heartfelt words stop Kyuko in her tracks. She looks back over her shoulder, her expression softening with a complex mix of surprise and understanding. But her internal thoughts reveal a painful truth. She knows that the very fact she wants to be an adventurer is something that will hurt her parents, no matter what she does. Her resolve hardened, a silent vow echoing in her mind. She would never give up. Turning to her parents, her voice trembled but remained firm as she made her declaration. She was in Tokyo after graduation. Her mother's face was etched with concern. Kyuko acknowledged the worry she was causing and apologized, but she did not waver. She explained that she didn't need their approval, only for them to understand her unwavering desire to become an adventurer. Her declaration escalated into a passionate, tearful shout. She promised that she would come back home one day, but only after she had crushed every last dungeon in the world. She continued, her voice filled with desperate conviction, explaining her grand ambition, to become the strongest adventurer in the world. If she could achieve that, then no one would ever be hurt again, and her mother would finally have no reason to worry. She pleaded for her mother to smile upon her return. As her words hung in the night air, her father watched her, a quiet thought crossing his mind. He looked at his daughter, now standing so resolute, and wondered when she had grown taller than him. Her mother's expression softened slightly, shifting from worry to a quiet request. She asked Kyuko to bring back some manju when she returned, noting it would make her grandmother happy, before adding, "And me too." She then added a quiet, heartbreaking confession, admitting that when Kyuko wasn't around, she wouldn't feel like eating them. The weight of her mother's love and sadness struck Kyuko, and fresh tears welled in her eyes. Under the full moon, standing together on a bridge, her mother finally gave her answer, a single, accepting okay. Elsewhere, Kaikeru slept, unaware of the emotional farewell taking place. The next morning, Kaikeru stopped for a drink at a public fountain. As he looked up, he let out a soft, "Oh," just catching sight of Kyuko walking away down the path, her journey already begun. He is outside early the next morning when he spots Kazari Kyuko. Noticing her presence, he asks if she is also up for training. Kyuko, however, is lost in her own thoughts, determined to thank him for his help the day before. Yet, when the moment comes, she finds herself inexplicably tongue-tied, only managing to stammer out a vague confirmation that she is doing something similar to training. Her heart begins to pound in her chest. A wave of heat rushes to her face as she stares in utter confusion, her mind reeling. Why was this happening? The overwhelming feeling culminates in a single, sharp, bewildered exclamation. As Kajura and Kazari walk together, she suddenly calls out for him to wait, her face flushed. He turns, asking if she's glad she was able to talk things out with her mother. She agrees, but internally she panics, thinking that this feeling must mean she's easy to charm. She quickly dismisses it as a simple psychological reaction, the suspension bridge effect, and tells herself she must be mistaken. As she wrestles with her thoughts, Kujira notes that her timing is perfect, as he has something he wants to discuss. He suggests she come with him, but a flustered Kazari shouts for him to stop and not talk to her right now. He stops and turns to face her directly, his expression serious. Ignoring her outburst, he makes a simple, direct declaration. I want you, Kazari. His words leave her utterly stunned, her mind going completely blank. She stumbles backward, letting out small gasps of shock and disbelief. Gathering herself, Kazari questions the suddenness of his statement, pointing out that they've only just met. Kujira calmly replies that he doesn't believe time is relevant, and begins to explain his reasoning. He looks at her with intensity, clarifying that he wants her because she has the talent for an adventurer. He continues, explaining that while he does a decent job, his role as a trap master is fundamentally a rearguard position. His party needs more vanguards. He reminds her how in tune they were while fighting together and starts to say that if possible, he would like to. Before he can finish, Kazari's expression twists into one of furious indignation. Clenching her teeth, she apologizes and demands to know if she messed something up. Her anger gives way to confusion as she asks Kujira to clarify his intentions. He hesitates for a moment before stating his request plainly, for her to join his party. Unseen by the pair, Itomi Kukuri watches from a distance alongside her companions. She sighs, remarking that she knew Kazari would refuse and calling her brother impulsive. Ashitari Yukiko quietly adds that Kujira had been confident he could convince her. As his former party members observe, Kujira's attention remains fixed on Kazari. He is surprised to see that she has stopped walking away. She turns back to face him from across the path, her voice carrying as she asks if he is truly serious about what he just said. He meets her gaze, his own expression firming with resolve. He confirms that he meant every word, especially his comment about them being in sync. Her response is unexpected. After a brief pause, she simply tells him to do it, leaving him momentarily baffled by her abrupt command. Before he can ask for clarification, she closes the distance between them in an instant, leaning in close to shout with renewed intensity that she will do it. She immediately qualifies her acceptance, her voice ringing with passion. It is not because he asked her to join, she declares, but because she felt the exact same way. Her passionate declaration brings a wide, relieved smile to his face. He shouts his agreement, realizing this is his chance to prove that together they can go further. As he celebrates, Kazari continues her speech, insisting that her dream and her feelings are not wrong. Watching them, Itomi Kukuri smiles faintly, affirming her own faith in her brother. If she doesn't believe in him, she thinks, then who will? As Itomi Kukuri continued to watch from afar, her brother's new partner, Kazuri Kyuko, turned to him with a fierce blush. She declared that if he truly understood their synergy, he needed to prepare himself. Kujira, looking slightly taken aback, simply agreed. Following her bold statement, Kazari turned away, her expression a mixture of determination and embarrassment. Observing this, Itomi remarked to Ashitari Yukiko that Kazari had accepted, noting that it was for the best. She continued to watch as Kazari clutched Kujira's arm, a tangible tension between the new partners. Itomi couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more complex happening beneath the surface of their agreement. Meanwhile, at a different location, Hagane Ko and her retainer strode purposefully across a rooftop toward a waiting helicopter. Standing on the helipad as the wind whipped her long hair, the Valkyrie confirmed she was ready to depart. The official announcement was made. Hagane Ko of the Holy Sword was setting off. Aboard the aircraft, Ashitari Yukiko remarked that it had been a while since Ko was seen, asking if she had business up north. Ko replied that she did not, adding thoughtfully that many stories begin after one leaves the capital. One of her retainers, seeing her contemplative look, smiled and commented on how much she had matured, no longer the fierce tomboy he once knew. Ko listened, a faint, knowing smile on her face as she gazed out the window. Her attention was fixed on the vast ocean below as she identified their objective, an underwater stampede dungeon. She remarked on its rarity, noting it was only the second such event to occur in Japan. She could already see monsters appearing in the water. Thankfully, they didn't appear to be swimming types, but she knew it would be dangerous if they got close to any ships. She resolved to eliminate the surface threats before entering the dungeon itself. With grim determination, she ordered the helicopter door opened. A retainer confirmed she had permission to use her skills outside the designated battle area. Poised at the edge, she prepared to unleash her secret sword technique, White Lightning. The Valkyrie unleashes her power. A colossal, crescent-shaped wave of pure energy, her secret sword, White Lightning, erupts from above, vaporizing the ocean's surface in a blinding flash. Her attack carves a deep, temporary trench into the sea, exposing the ocean floor and annihilating the monster stampede within. From her vantage point, she gazes down upon the path of utter destruction she has wrought. Just before her leap, the helicopter pilot had asked with concern how she planned to get back. She had replied nonchalantly, telling him to just pick her up when he saw her floating. Now, as he watches her tiny form plummet towards the water, He can only think to himself that her power is truly inhuman. Meanwhile, in a dark forest under a crescent moon, Kajura's new party faces a different threat. As a hulking, masked demon looms, Kajura issues swift commands, directing Tsukigase to block the right flank while ordering Kazari to execute her part of the plan. Following his order, Kazari leaps through the air, striking a triumphant pose as she lands. With a flourish of her rapier, she declares her task complete. Tsukigase immediately rushes to her side, proudly exclaiming that she won. A flustered Kazari insists it wasn't a competition, but Tsukigase playfully prods her, asking if she doesn't want to appeal to Oniai-chan, causing the fencer to blush. Watching them from a short distance, Natsum remarks on how cheerful Tsukigase has been lately. Yujui agrees, noting that fighting has become much easier with a fifth member. She correctly surmises that Tsukigase is happy to have found a rival in Kazari, as they are both similar types of fighters. With their mission complete, Tsukasa asks if all the gates in the area have been protected. Kazari confirms this, adding that the lifting of travel restrictions has made an old man from the trading city very happy, which makes the job feel worthwhile. Again, Ko praises Kaikeru for a job well done and mentions she will take the damaged equipment to the Reize blacksmith. When she asks about his plans, he replies that he can manage his own affairs. As the group walks, Kazari observes Kaikeru, thinking it's unfair that a former member of the Holy Sword is so capable. Tsukasa agrees, remarking that this must be how the top adventurers operate. Internally, Kazari admits she's never met anyone who trains and prepares more than her, comparing him to an adventure machine. Her contemplation sparks a competitive fire within her. She decides this challenge suits her just fine and resolves to take on the Origin Gate or whatever else he might face, ready to match him. Unaware of her thoughts, Kaikeru glances at his companions, a faint smile touching his lips as he reflects on the fact that they now have a good party. He then gets everyone's attention, announcing that he has something to tell them while they are on the move. When Kazari asks what it is, he declares his intention to explain how he learned to use the arrow symbol. His words capture the full attention of his party. Kazari, Tsukasa, Yujui, and Ko, who all listen intently. The image of the mysterious woman who granted him the power flashes in his mind, superimposed over the symbol itself. Again, Ko is the first to react, immediately questioning if the mysterious girl was even human. Tsukasa voices her own suspicion, suggesting that she believes the girl is aligned with the dungeons in some way. Kaikeru clarifies that the only thing he knows for certain is that she gave him the skill with a specific goal in mind. This information startles Tsukasa, who remarks that she has never heard a monster that could speak, let alone one that takes a human form. As he speaks, a spectral image of the long-haired woman materializes behind him in his mind's eye. He concludes his explanation by stating that, as a result of their encounter, he is now somehow connected to her. Kazari finds this difficult to believe immediately, pondering the mysterious origins of skills and jobs, a topic many have researched. Ko then asks if it feels like the woman is watching him. Kaikeru can only admit that he doesn't know. As his new companions process the revelation, Kazari was the first to speak. She conceded that it's natural to assume quests originate from dungeons. But if this entity could grant skills at will, the implications were vast. Continuing the thought, Yujui voiced a chilling possibility. If skills could be given, perhaps they could also be taken away. Kazari, meanwhile, briefly wondered if this meant she could acquire a unique skill of her own. Tsukasa's voice cut through their speculation. Looking at Kaikeru, she bluntly stated how dangerous the situation was, casting a palpable sense of dread over the group. He met their concern with a grim expression, acknowledging that chaos would spread if the story got out. However, he concluded that ignoring the threat felt even more dangerous. Laying out his plan, he explained that before they could challenge the Origin Gate, they first needed to investigate the top brass of the Adventurers Association, focusing only on those who believed his story. Kazari questioned if they could truly trust anyone in the association. Still troubled by the memory of the giant hand that emerged from the dungeon, she declared that she would use her family's connections to investigate. A realization seemed to strike Kaikeru. He muttered that those girls, his former party, were ill-suited for political maneuvering. Tsukasa, confused by the comment, simply said his name. Tsukasa pressed him, asking why he hadn't told Holy Sword but was willing to tell a newcomer like her. Kazari added that she would have thought the Reize family was more trustworthy. Kaikeru sighed, explaining that telling them would put them at risk, as the mysterious woman might retaliate. He turned away, his expression firm. He stated that, regardless of the other factors, he felt it was unacceptable to bring them to Tokyo without first telling them the truth of the situation. Kazari agreed, stating she would have haunted him if something had happened while she was kept in the dark. Kaikeru then faced Tsukasa, admitting they were up against an unknown being. He confessed his selfish motive. He only told them because he wanted the four of them to challenge the entity together by his side. He apologized, leaving Tsukasa to absorb the weight of his true intentions. As Tsukasa stood silently, her expression unreadable, Kazari Kyuko stepped forward onto the balcony. Announcing that she would go first, she began to voice her thoughts. She declared that she was actually relieved to finally know the secret behind Kaikeru's absurd power. In short, she reasoned, all they needed to do was defeat their powerful enemies, and it would bring them one step closer to becoming the greatest in the world. Following Kazari's ambitious statement, Yuzui Turu offered her own perspective. She noted that if Kaikeru was somehow linked to the mystery of the Origin Gate, then he might be her only ticket to finding the miracle cure she seeks. For her, this wasn't a dangerous entanglement, but a welcome opportunity. Suddenly, Tsukasa lunged forward, grabbing Kaikeru's face with both hands and squeezing his cheeks. She chided him, exclaiming that he took far too long to tell them and that he should rely on his friends more. She continued with unwavering conviction, declaring that it didn't matter if it was the mysterious origin of adventurers or some other grand problem. They would all solve it together. Looking up at him earnestly, she proclaimed that his troubles were now also the troubles of their party, Vestige. A bright, determined smile spread across Tsukasa's face. Her heartfelt declaration solidified their bond, and with unified resolve, Kaikeru, Kazari, and Yuzui agreed. Together they would do it. With their unity cemented, Kaikeru began to lay out the plan. He explained that before they could participate in the Origin Gate expedition, two conditions had to be met. The first, which he was already working on, was for him to become an A-rank adventurer. As for the second, he revealed the final, daunting condition. They must clear a high-rank dungeon. The words evoked an image of a foreboding, sealed-off dungeon entrance, crackling with dark energy. Aboard a small boat cutting through the water, Tsukage's Tsukasa excitedly points towards a distant, rocky landmass. She calls out, asking if that is their destination, and Kajura Kaikeru, standing beside her, and Yuzui Turu, confirms that it is. Having arrived, the full party, Kaikeru, Tsukasa, Yuzui, Kazuri Kyuko, and Reize Agino, stands before the ominous, bubbling portal of a dungeon. Reize explains that it is a genuine A-rank dungeon, which had gone unnoticed for some time due to its remote location, and that her group has just acquired the rights to clear it. She continues with confidence, noting that with all 5 of them present, and having improved their levels in teamwork during the recent stampede, she is certain they will succeed. Tsukasa then reminds Kaikeru of his own rule. For his party, Vestige, to rank up, all its members must clear a high-rank dungeon together. With their objective clear, the 5 adventurers turn and advance into the crackling, shadowy maw of the dungeon entrance, spurred on by Kaikeru's command to go. Inside, the fighting is already intense. Kazuri Kyuko strains against a powerful blow, her expression tight with effort. She realizes the fight is tough, and that the monster's attention is now focused entirely on her, resolving that she cannot let it look away. From a short distance, Yuzui watches with concern. Her struggle is cut short as Reize intercepts the foe, blocking an attack from a large avian monster with her shield and shouting her approval of the challenge. Kazari thanks her for the save. Reize confirms that while the high-level monsters are formidable, their party can still fight them on even ground. After the battle, the group discusses their situation. Kazari remarks that their party of muscle brains finds it tough without a dedicated healer, though Tsukasa counters that they have plenty of firepower. Yuzui offers healing magic to Kaikeru, but he declines, stating he's fine and should conserve magic for the boss. Internally, he acknowledges that Vestige's weakness is its inability to sustain prolonged combat, reinforcing his desire to find a boss room quickly. They proceed deeper into the dungeon, arriving in a bizarre, surreal chamber. A massive, twisted tree-like form dominates the center, surrounded by floating office furniture, desks, chairs, and computer monitors, drifting aimlessly in the void. Tsukasa voices the group's thoughts, commenting on how eerie the place is. Walking through the strange landscape, Kaikeru silently reflects that continuing to wander around aimlessly will be bad for the party's morale. As if sensing his thoughts, Tsukasa turns to him and offers a solution. She suggests using her stealth ability to perform some scouting, proposing she climb the central structure to get a better view of their surroundings. She steals her resolve, deciding she cannot let fear get the better of her, as scouting is an assassin's specialty. Kaikeru, however, voices his concern, questioning if moving alone is too dangerous. He wonders aloud what they should do, acknowledging the truth in her assessment. Having made her decision, Tsukasa cheerfully tells the group to set up an anti-monster tent and relax. She points to a large, strange tree, declaring she will use it as a landmark for her return. Seeing her confidence, Kaikeru agrees, entrusting the task to her. As she departs, the rest of the party watches her go. Kazari remarks to the others that being the leader must be very tough on Kaikeru, a sentiment they quietly agree with. He walks on, a thoughtful expression on his face. He reflects internally on the immense weight of his new role. Each and every decision he makes now puts the lives of his party members at stake, a heavy responsibility he hadn't fully considered until they formed Vestige. His thoughts drift to Hagane Ko, wondering about the burden she must bear as the leader of Japan's #1 party. He looks up at the strange, floating orbs in the dungeon's sky, contemplating the pressures of command. Sometime later, Yuzui peeks out from the entrance of the newly erected tent. Seeing a figure approach, she smiles and offers a welcome, believing Tsukasa has returned and calling out Oniai-chan in greeting. The figure, however, is not Tsukasa. It is one of the avian monsters native to this dungeon, its wide, toothy mouth opening to perfectly mimic the word she just spoke. Oni-chan. The creature lets out a piercing shriek as it lunges. The party members, caught completely off guard by the sudden, bizarre attack, react with shouts of shock and alarm, drawing their weapons. In the immediate aftermath, as the party stands ready, a shaken Yuzui turns to Kaikeru. She asks if the voice they just heard belonged to Tsukasa. He tries to calm her, explaining that monsters capable of mimicry often have excellent hearing and might just be repeating something Tsukasa said earlier. But Yuzui refutes this, her expression filled with dread. She insists that the voice was calling for him specifically for Kajura-sen, implying Tsukasa is in danger and needs help. He and the others remain huddled beneath the giant leaf, which Akino confirms is the landmark Tsukasa intended to use. All around them, the avian monsters continue their unsettling chorus, mimicking a child's voice calling for her big brother. The incessant cries continue, a nightmarish soundscape that frays their nerves. Akino voices her disgust, while Kaikeru grimly notes their overwhelming numbers. Yuzui, meanwhile, grows increasingly anxious, feeling that simply waiting and conserving her strength is a waste when so many things are causing her worry. Her anxiety boils over. She points out that it's strange. If Tsukasa were truly fine, he should have noticed them by now. She suggests using her own stealth ability to go search for him. But Kaikeru immediately rejects the idea, reminding her that splitting the party again would be an even more dangerous move. He clenches his jaw, forcing himself to remain steadfast. He knows he cannot lose his composure, as doing so would undermine the very decision he made. No matter how scared they become, they must hold their position. His thoughts drift to the missing boy, his voice a silent plea. Tsukasa. A moment of doubt washes over him as he wonders if he made the right choice in having them wait. His introspection is cut short as one of the bat-like creatures dives down, tearing a chunk out of the giant leaf that serves as their only cover. Startled, he looks up at the new tear in their shelter. Yuzui points out the obvious, her voice laced with panic, confirming that the leaf was just damaged by a monster's attack. He shouts her name, Yuzui, grabbing her attention. He tries to project confidence, assuring her that Tsukasa is all right and that there must be a simple reason he hasn't found them yet. Without waiting for response, he issues a command, telling her to fire an arrow upwards. He specifies the technique, arrow, symbol plus light. She immediately complies, knocking and releasing a glowing projectile. The arrow streaks toward the cavern ceiling, creating a massive, luminous sigil in the air, a beacon in the darkness. But as he watches it ascend, the light arrow simply vanishes mid-flight, winking out of existence. A horrifying realization dawns on him. He knew it. They are trapped within an illusion. He watches with grim focus as Tsukasa descends through the illusionary sky, a spear-like weapon in hand, surrounded by the bat-like avian monsters. The light arrow he had fired just moments before had vanished, confirming the nature of their prison. Upon landing safely, she throws her arms out and announces her return with a cheerful shout. Kaikeru and the others look on with visible relief as she playfully chides them for worrying, calling out to her Oni-chan. She then glances at one of the defeated avian monsters, complaining that the voice it mimicked was nowhere near as cute as her own. Tsukasa explains her descent, noting that when she looked down, the area looked completely different and she couldn't tell where to land. She expresses her gratitude to Yuzui Turu, whose landmark guided her safely to their location. Kaikeru listens, feeling a sense of relief that he was able to figure things out. He thanks Tsukasa for noticing the discrepancies, steeling himself for the more important choices he knows are yet to come. She then excitedly announces that she found the boss room and even marked the path so they wouldn't get lost. Kaikeru and Kazari react with stunned surprise. Tsukasa adds, however, that something about it seems strange. Following her directions, the party arrives before an ornate door entwined with strange, vine-like growths. Confused by her comment, Kaikeru asks what she finds strange about it. Tsukasa points to the intricate carvings, asking if the patterns on the door look different from before. The question triggers a sudden, shocking realization in Kaikeru. His eyes widen as he identifies their location, an epitaph dungeon. He confirms her observation, admitting that he has only encountered an epitaph once in his life. Hearing this, Tsukasa asks with concern if the epitaph is the boss monster. Yuzui Turu steps forward to clarify. She explains that an epitaph itself is a rather weak existence without a physical body, but possesses some troublesome abilities. Intrigued, Tsukasa immediately asks what kind of abilities it has. She continues her explanation of the dungeon's nature, revealing that the epitaph can make copies of them. It does this by reading an adventurer's memories of their comrades, and then projecting those memories onto 20 blank figures. Kaikeru processes this, noting that it takes a significant amount of time for the copies to fully reproduce the power of the originals. Tsukasa realizes that if they wait too long, they won't be able to win, and Yuzui confirms the daunting number, 20. He continues, explaining to the group that adventurers typically find it difficult to discern their real companions from the fakes, and the projections exploit that hesitation to attack. Therefore, he concludes, their only course of action is to defeat the copies as fast as possible. As Akino voices her concern over how troublesome the situation is and asks for a plan, Kaikeru announces that he has a theory. He instructs everyone that once they enter the room, they must focus only on defeating their own copy. Kazari agrees, noting a figure that is clearly a fake. Kaikeru adds that with this strategy, they won't have to worry about friendly fire. With the plan set, Kaikeru declares that the memory scan begins upon entry, making it a battle of speed. He yells for them to go, and the party charges into a chamber filled with 20 blank, waiting figures. The moment they cross the threshold, the projections begin to shimmer and transform. Akino looks on, realizing with a start that this is the power of the epitaph manifesting before them. Yuzui finds herself face-to-face with her own doppelganger. She remarks that it really does look like her, then immediately shouts that the experience doesn't feel good at all as she prepares to strike. The battle erupts as each party member engages their copy. Kaikeru observes that their formation is working, allowing them to attack freely and make good progress. He urges them to defeat the copies before they gain more power, as Tsukasa begins to count down the remaining foes. 19, then 18. He lunges forward, his blade a blur of motion. To distinguish himself from the enemy copies, he shouts his identity, while an observer notes the distinct shape of his katana. His attack, however, is met with resistance. The sharp ring of steel on steel echoes as his katana is intercepted by another blade. The one who blocked him is his own doppelganger. Kaikeru's eyes widen in disbelief as his companions watch in horror. Tsukasa exclaims that the copy stopped him, while Yuzui expresses shock that the projection has already managed to reproduce so much power. Suddenly, another combatant enters the fray, moving with incredible speed. The party members cry out in confusion, shouting that this newcomer is not one of them. Kaikeru, however, recognizes the figure instantly. His expression shifts from battle focus to stunned disbelief as he breathes a single name, Ko. The name belongs to Hagane Ko. Wielding a katana with a calm, focused gaze, she now stands amidst the chaos, having arrived unannounced on the battlefield. As Kaikeru and his party watch, he utters the name Ko. A spectral image of Hagane Ko, appearing younger than he remembers, materializes before them. With a determined expression, she poises her blade and unleashes a powerful technique. White lightning, first sword. The brilliant flash of light from her spectral attack slams into the masked forest demon, sending the shadowy figure hurtling backward through the air. As the demon is thrown back, Kazuri Kyuko leaps high to press the advantage, her rapier ready. Below, Tsukasa can only exclaim in shock at the sudden, unexpected assault. A powerful impact resounds as the monster is struck again. Seeing the blow land, Tsukasa instinctively cries out to Kaikeru, calling him Oni-ai-chan. Amidst the chaos, Yuzui and Kazari confer. Yuzui is sure the apparition is younger than the public figure she knows, but she recognizes her from magazines. Kazari confirms her identity with certainty. Hagane Ko, from the renowned Holy Sword Party. The truth crashes down on Kaikeru. The monster had read his memories. He realizes with dawning horror that the creature can read the minds of adventurers and their allies, which is how it conjured the image of Ko. Before they can react to this revelation, the demon recovers. Dark tendrils erupt from its form, lashing out at the group. Kazari immediately moves to intercept, shouting for the others to get behind her. The immediate danger doesn't stop the brewing conflict. Tsukasa confronts Kaikeru, angrily accusing him of thinking about Holy Sword, while with them, calling him a cheater. As he tries to deny it, Yuzui screams at them both to save the argument for later. Kazari's rapier clashes with the shadowy attack, and she cries out from the sheer force of the impact. She urgently tells Yuzui they must defeat the monster quickly, as it's still reading their memories and growing stronger by the second. Overwhelmed, Kaikeru yells at himself, wishing he could just lose his memory on the spot. Tsukasa retorts in frustration, pointing out how impossible that is and questioning how they are supposed to defeat an enemy that knows their every thought. He grits his teeth as the situation becomes clear. The being manifested by the demon is not the current Hagane Ko, but a version from her past. His companion points out that they should be grateful. If it were the present-day Ko, they would have already been defeated. His eyes widen in dawning horror as the memory sharpens. He realizes with certainty that the Ko before him is the one from that specific, painful time in his past. The memory plunges him into a rocky wasteland where he and this younger Ko once battled a massive, winged reptilian beast. As he watched from the ground, she launched herself into the air, blade poised to strike the creature down. In this memory, she was not alone. Reizei Agino and Ashitari Yukiko fought at her side. Ko directed him to move into position, declaring she would handle the monster's left flank. Yukiko confirmed the strategy, confident that their coordinated assault would leave the beast severely wounded. After the battle, as he slumped in exhaustion, he overheard his party members discussing his contribution. One wondered aloud if they had overworked him, noting that he had set about 20% of the traps they used. He could only bow his head, drenched in sweat and shame. He apologized for always being a bother, for making them worry about his level being so much lower than theirs. This memory was from a pivotal period. It was shortly after Ko had achieved the coveted S rank and was just beginning to be recognized for her immense power. Standing with Yukiko and Ajino, Ko had addressed the issue. As Japan's strongest adventurer, she declared that it was best for the party to raise everyone's level in unison. Ajino affirmed this, stating that the four of them together formed the strongest party. Despite his utter exhaustion, their words had spurred him on. As he lay on the ground, completely spent from training, one of his teammates cheered for him to keep going, believing he could do it. As the three women watched him train, one nervously asked if it was all right to use a certain skill without permission. Another commented on how hard he always worked. Ko, however, watched him with resolve, vowing to herself that she would make sure to catch up to his level of effort. He recalled the time he used to fly, his thoughts drifting as he watched a small, winged contraption soar against the clouds. He tried to reassure himself that everything was fine. As he watched it, Hagane Ko's voice broke his reverie. She remarked that they all needed a breather sometimes, though it was a pity Yukiko wasn't with them. Ko remembered Yukiko had magazine interviews that day and suggested they meet up with her. Just as she finished speaking, a voice called out from above. It was Ashitori Yukiko, perched atop a high wall, who apologized with a hint of sarcasm for not being seen. She leaped down with an exasperated sigh. When Ko asked how the interview went, Yukiko complained that the interviewers had annoyed her, so she simply ran away, ignoring the subsequent calls from the association manager. Meanwhile, that very manager was fuming. An angry official cursed that the brat had really left, complaining that she constantly breaks rules and runs away the moment something displeases her. He griped that the president was far too favorable to them, but his calmer colleague advised him to relax. The calmer official, Hayudu, watched him go, musing on the party's appeal. He understood why the president liked them so much. A group of childhood friends from Tokyo, all just 17, shooting for the top with no money or special skills. He acknowledged their story was incredible and made them an alluring asset. He continued his assessment, noting that while Hagane Ko was the standout, the other two were also quite good. He concluded that if they could be managed properly, the public image of all adventurers would improve considerably. Elsewhere, the party's dynamics were a topic of public discussion. A journalist questioned why the four were so obsessed with staying together, a query that seemed to puzzle one man being interviewed. However, the angry official from before bluntly stated that there was one useless member among them. Hayudu's private thoughts offered a different perspective on their bond. He understood that the reason for their behavior was simple. They were still just children. And in that moment, as children, they stood together, looking out at the glittering city skyline. Ko marveled at the view, while Yukiko drily commented it was the only good thing about the city. But Kaikeru, looking at his friends, had a somber realization. It was only because they were young and naive that they believed they could continue on like this forever. His memory continues, replaying a conversation between his former party members as they flew over the city at night. One notes that they lost a sponsor because of the man Ko sent flying, while another dismisses the man, calling him a pervert who got what he deserved. He recalls Ashitari Yukiko complaining about the many annoyances they face, but he simply agrees with a smile, thinking that as long as the four of them are together, it's still fun. The pleasant memory shifts as Itomi Kukuri announces it's time for them to land, informing Yukiko that the president has called for them. Yukiko questions if it is for work. Following the summons, Kukuri enters an office where a stern-looking association manager waits. He gestures for her to come in. The manager begins the conversation by acknowledging that it's thanks to her party that they can pass down low-paying dungeon jobs, but he bluntly states that he sees it as the simple exploitation of the young. He then reminds Kukuri of what she said during their very first meeting, that an adventurer's true calling is to protect people. Prompted by his words, she asks what he wants her opinion on. The manager pauses, explaining that his perspective is one forged by a long life. He then delivers a shocking proposal, asking what she would think about disbanding her party, Holy Sword, in order to become Japan's very first S-rank adventurer. The weight of his words leaves Kukuri completely stunned, unable to form a coherent response. The manager continues, explaining the dire situation. He reveals that Japan is the only country with an origin gate that lacks an S-rank adventurer. For 40 years, they have barely endured by deceiving the populace into believing the dungeons are a blessing, a lie created to mask the massive casualties they suffered from a slow response when the gate first appeared. In a separate, but strikingly similar, meeting, the association manager makes a proposition to Hagane Ko. He explains that they want to form a special party of chosen adventurers with her at its center, all to make a serious attempt at conquering the origin gate. His expression intensifies as he elaborates that the international definition of an S-rank adventurer is someone who can change their country's future. Looking her directly in the eye, he names her Hagane Ko and declares his desire for her to become the hope of their people. She looks down for a moment, a slight blush on her cheeks, and quietly admits that she is overjoyed by the praise he is giving her. However, her expression quickly turns serious as she looks back toward the manager. She seeks clarification, noting that such an arrangement would mean her current party of four could no longer continue together. The manager confirms her fears with a grave look. He states that they are serious, and this new party will be composed only of top-ranking adventurers, acknowledging that she understands the gravity of the situation. Ko immediately objects, insisting that her strength comes from having her 3 friends by her side, and that a party's power isn't solely based on its members' individual strength. The manager dismisses her concern, suggesting that if her friends are truly worthy, they will catch up eventually, and that party compositions will be reviewed every few years regardless. He leans closer, his gaze piercing and unwavering. He tells her that she must understand she cannot remain a child forever, his words hanging heavily in the air. The tense negotiation is suddenly shattered as an aide bursts into the room, shouting for the president. When asked what is wrong, the aide reports that the Purple Seniors Party has returned from Yokohama half-destroyed, with 1 confirmed fatality. The news visibly shocks both the manager and Ko. The aide clarifies that it is a stampede dungeon, located dangerously close to a city, requiring an immediate response. The manager grimly reflects that he hadn't thought the Purple Seniors would be overwhelmed. Before he can deliberate further, Ko slams her hands on the desk. With fierce determination burning in her eyes, she shouts a demand. Please, send us. Her party soars through the night sky above the city, riding a large, white, paper-like construct. Hagane Ko, Kajura Kaikeru, and her 2 companions from the Holy Sword are en route to the dungeon break. As they travel, Kaikeru notices Ko's somber expression. He leans in, asking if something's wrong. She averts her gaze, quickly insisting that it's nothing. Her denial is immediately and bluntly refuted. Itomi Kukuri and her other companion both call out, "Liar," questioning her obvious falsehood. Kaikeru looks on, surprised by their directness. Caught, Ko flushes, wondering aloud if her feelings are truly that obvious. Kukuri smiles knowingly, remarking that their leader is the worst liar in Japan, a fact she attributes to how long they've all been together. Kaikeru watches her, a look of admiration on his face as he thinks to himself that Ko just keeps getting more amazing. Meanwhile, her 2 companions discuss the S-rank offer, acknowledging that while it's a great honor, it's also an immense responsibility. The girl with the buns then asks Ko directly if she intends to accept the position. Ko's expression falls. She admits that while she would devote her life to the cause if ordered, she can't stand the thought of being separated from all of them. Hearing her heartfelt confession, Kukuri's expression softens into a reassuring smile. Okay, she says, no matter what happens, we'll stay by your side. Touched and resolute, Ko suggests that if the 4 of them conquer this dungeon, they'll be more convincing when they all go to speak with the manager together. Their unity restored, the party presses on. Ahead, a swirling vortex of dark energy crackles above the city. Kaikeru spots it, shouting, I see it. That's it over there. Let's go. As they surge forward, Ko quietly offers her thanks. Within a desolate, lightning-scarred landscape, Kajura Kaikeru reflects on his exhaustion. The constant struggle feels like he's been running a marathon at a full sprint. This feeling dredges up old insecurities. He recalls his past efforts, scouting, providing support, doing everything he could, and working twice as hard as anyone else, yet still coming up short. It was a doubt he could never quite shake. In the present, Hagane Ko's voice cuts through his thoughts. She remarks that she hadn't expected the dungeon to be so difficult, acknowledging that if they didn't have the information gathered from their previous attempts, they would not have succeeded. Her words hang in the air as the party, Kajura, Ko, Itomi Kukuri, and their other companion, stand before a massive, ornate door crackling with energy. Ko finishes her thought, stating plainly that without that prior knowledge, they wouldn't have made it this far. Just before they breach the entrance, Kukuri urges them to hurry, uncertain how long their allies can hold off the monsters outside. Kajura turns to her, asking if she is ready, before he charges through the doors. The moment he enters, the room's mechanism triggers. Kajura finds himself alone on a floating platform inside a vast, shifting cubic chamber. He looks down in shock to see his party members separated below, realizing they've been split up by a gimmick boss. His eyes dart around the chaotic space. A spike of alarm hits him when he confirms Ko isn't with the others. His frantic search ends as he spots her on a distant platform below. He also sees Reize Agino, similarly isolated in another section of the arena. Following his gaze, he sees what Reize is confronting. The paladin stands defiant before a towering, armored knight whose sheer size is overwhelming. The massive figure is clad in dark, ornate plate mail, its plumed helmet adding to its menacing stature. Kajura immediately recognizes the figure as the boss. Elsewhere, Kukuri finds herself trapped, while Ko grimly assesses their foe's power. She concludes that it is strong, likely stronger than any monster she has ever faced. Reacting to the dire situation, Itomi Kukuri lunges into action from her position, unleashing a powerful strike as she calls out its name, Hand of the Death God. Her strongest attack dissipates without leaving a scratch. She observes her surroundings, realizing with dismay that they are completely separated from the main group. It is as if they're trapped in a room of judgment. As she grapples with her predicament, the armored boss brings its massive sword down upon Hagane Ko in another chamber. Reize Agino shouts a warning, recognizing that this kind of grand attack often signifies a larger mechanic at play. From his own isolated cell, Kajura watches the near miss. A realization strikes him. This is a type of boss that cannot be defeated directly. They must first fulfill a specific condition within each of their separated rooms. He calls out encouragement to Ko, telling her to hang in there while they figure out what to do. Gripping her sword, she gives a firm, determined acknowledgement. Elsewhere, Itomi Kikuri takes action. With a focused cry, she summons a shikigami, calling forth a paper familiar to aid her. The shikigami flutters around the stark white room, but it finds no exit, nor anything else of note. Kikuri realizes there seems to be no way out. In yet another chamber, Reize clashes with the armored foe. Kajura observes her fight, noting that despite her amazing skills, she is struggling. The level of this challenge must be incredibly high. He forces himself to calm down and think, scanning the views of the other rooms. His eyes lock onto one in particular. He shouts, identifying Ashitori Yukiko's room as the lowest one. At his call, Yukiko strikes the floor, shattering it. Kajura realizes he was right. Her attacks worked. The condition to clear the rooms is to deal enough damage. But this realization brings with it terrible news. The crushing weight of his situation descends upon him. Trapped and alone, Kajura stares in despair, remembering that as a trap master, he has no attacks whatsoever. He realizes that his own power is insufficient to even scratch the wall of his prison. The grim conclusion dawns on him. He has no choice but to use his traps. Meanwhile, in her own chamber, Hagenko observes a miniature projection of his room and understands that he is resorting to his equipment. His desperation grows as he acknowledges a critical flaw in his plan. He lacks sufficient equipment with enough mana to activate his traps, realizing he will run out of resources long before he can succeed. This won't work. In stark contrast, Ko unleashes a powerful strike against her own wall, the impact echoing with force. Her assault is successful. She sees that one of the glowing marks on her wall has vanished, confirming she has met the required condition. Yet, her expression remains tense. Back in his cell, Kajura hurls his last piece of equipment, his sword, at the unyielding barrier. It shatters on impact, and with it his last hope. He collapses to his knees, utterly defeated. From her own battle, Ko's voice cuts through his despair. She shouts for him not to give up, promising she can keep fighting for as long as he needs, urging him to think of a solution. He looks up, shouting her name as he watches her endure a brutal onslaught, her body taking damage as she relentlessly attacks her prison. His mind spirals. He can't bear to just watch her, the one who saves so many, be defeated here. A thought then stops him cold, his helplessness, his role as a spectator. No, he realizes, that's wrong. Before the imposing, cloaked figure of the armored boss, Kajura Kaikeru slams his hand to the ground, a crescent-shaped sigil glowing beneath his fist as he activates his skill. Trap set. The activation of a trap on the floor startles Hagenko, who whirls around in shock, calling out Kaikeru's name with wide, disbelieving eyes. He is immediately struck by a blast of dark energy from the boss, grunting in pain as the force throws him back. Undeterred, he braces himself, ready to endure it again. Seeing this, Ko screams at him to stop, warning that he is going to maim himself. Kaikeru shouts back that it's fine, dismissing her concern. His face is a mask of pure determination as he declares that he doesn't care if he loses an arm, so long as it means he can help Ko. The two stand before the armored boss, its massive, cloaked form looming over them. A glowing trap box hovers near its feet, a testament to Kaikeru's dangerous gambit. The boss ignores the trap and lunges at Ko, its sword descending in a powerful arc that smashes into her guard, sending her reeling backwards. As she recovers, Kaikeru calls out to her, telling her to keep calm. Ko retorts that she is calm, but argues that his assertion about her attacks being useless is merely conjecture based on her past experiences. Her expression hardens with renewed resolve. She declares that she cannot accept this outcome without first giving the fight her absolute all. She surges forward, engaging the armored boss in a furious exchange of blows. Kaikeru watches, amazed, thinking to himself how incredible she is, considering she was being pushed back just moments ago. Hagenko's relentless assault continues, her blade striking the armored boss's impervious plating again and again. She cries out in frustration, realizing that simply cutting it achieves nothing and that she is exhausting herself for no reason. As she fights, Kaikeru lies collapsed on the ground. A dark, crystalline corruption spreads across his arm. Yet despite the obvious agony, he clenches his hand into a tight, determined fist. His gaze remains fixed on Ko's desperate battle. As he watches her, he notices a change. The glowing pattern of the trap he set on the floor has begun to respond to her furious attacks. Observing from safe distance, Itomi Kikuri remarks on the long-standing mystery of how some monsters can be immune to attacks. Ashitori Yukiko speculates that perhaps the dungeon itself absorbs the damage, though she is baffled as to how that could be possible. Kaikeru, however, seems to understand. He realizes that for Ko to overcome this absorption, the amount of power she need to unleash would have to be massive. As a wave of dark energy pulses from his trap, he can only whisper her name. He looks upon her with profound admiration, a faint smile touching his lips. He acknowledges to himself that she is truly amazing, more so than he could ever have hoped to be. Empowered by the energy surging from the trap, Ko lets out a defiant roar and swings her blade with the last of her strength. Her strike shatters the very air, and a crystalline barrier of energy surrounding the boss cracks and explodes into countless fragments. The sight leaves Kakuri and Yukiko utterly speechless. Again, Ko stands firm amidst the dissipating shards of the broken barrier, her expression one of grim resolve. The path to her enemy is finally open. She turns her head, her gaze falling upon the still, silent form of Kaikeru lying motionless on the dungeon floor. He lies on the ground, the dark corruption on his arm still smoking from the exertion. Again, Ko stares down at him, her eyes wide with shock as she breathes his name. From the floor, Kaikeru can only manage a weak apology. His apology triggers a memory of a past failure. In a stark, empty space, Ko kneels in defeat, her sword cast aside. Kaikeru sits before her, turning his head away with a sigh of resignation. As Ashitori Yukiko rushes toward the scene in the past, Kaikeru apologizes to the kneeling Ko, admitting that he gave up. It was after this event that Ko was officially recognized as an S-rank adventurer. Her party, Holy Sword, became famous and was granted a grace period before their eventual mission to conquer the Origin Gate. His internal monologue from that time reveals his despair. He had already abandoned any hope of ever being able to stand on equal footing with his comrades. He continues his reflection, concluding that because he had already given up in his heart, it was inevitable that the party would kick him out, a memory punctuated by the image of him being struck down. The flashback shatters, returning to the present. Kaikeru is on his feet, his eyes burning with newfound resolve. He looks directly at Ko, apologizing again, but this time with strength. He makes a solemn promise that he will not run away anymore. The confrontation erupts as Kujira Kaikeru's weapon meets Hagane Ko's in a tremendous clash. The sheer force of her strike sends a shockwave outwards, pushing Kaikeru back as he struggles to hold his ground against her overwhelming power. Staggering slightly, he confers with his party. Reise Agino asks for his plan, even suggesting a temporary retreat. Kaikeru admits that while he can currently match Ko's speed, he cannot withstand locking blades with her for more than a few seconds. Despite the risk, Agino's resolve hardens. She declares that retreating now would mean their dream of reaching the Origin Gate would be lost forever. With a passionate cry, she rallies the team to fight for victory, and they all roar in agreement. Across from them, Ko demonstrates the main trait of her power, White Lightning. She swings her sword, launching a devastating shockwave, a first-class ranged attack that tears through the ground right beside the party, causing them to cry out in alarm. Watching the display of power, Yujui Turu comes to a grim realization. If Ko manages to get close and land a direct hit with that blade, the result would be instant death. In stark contrast, Kazari Kyuko's eyes light up with battle fervor. She declares that she has always wanted to fight Ko. With a challenging shout of "Bring it on!" she prepares to engage. She surges forward, knowing that as long as Ko can swing her sword freely, no one else can attack. Kyuko steels herself, determined to be the one to get within range and stop her. Kyuko successfully closes the distance, locking blades with the Valkyrie. She vows to stay in range, even if it kills her. Seeing this incredible feat, Agino shouts that they must use this chance and orders the team into Formation A. With Ko's attention fixed on Kyuko, Yujui takes her position. She draws her bow, gathering a massive amount of magical energy into the arrowhead for a single, decisive shot. Agino explains the strategy. Formation A is a long-range sniping tactic for bosses. While she, Kaikeru, and Kyuko keep Ko occupied with attacks, Yujui will land the killing blow with her incredible magic. She stands firm, shield raised, declaring her sole purpose is to keep Yujui-sama safe. With fierce determination, she vows that not even a single breeze will get past her. Behind her, Yujui Turu gathers magical energy, understanding she will likely only get one chance and must use all her mana for the shot. She turns to Kujira, stating she needs 1 minute. That minute begins as Kazuri Kyuko engages Hagane Ko. Kujira watches, calculating that Yujui's full power shot should pierce Ko's armor, but he suspects Ko will not be so kind as to simply stand still and accept the attack. He signals to Tsukage's, who affirms her readiness. Kujira declares their intent to lock down Ko, emphasizing that the coordinated attack between the three of them is vital for their success. The three warriors converge on their target. The clash is immediate and overwhelming. Reise Agino is stunned by Hagane Ko's incredible speed, realizing she is being outpaced in the offensive exchange. Their blades clash in a furious flurry of motion. Kujira, Kazari, and Reise press their assault from all sides, attempting to overwhelm the lone Valkyrie with their numbers. Despite their combined efforts, Ko moves like a whirlwind, deflecting every blow. Kujira roars for his companions not to let her escape, grimly acknowledging that she was not kind enough to miss her last counterattack. The Valkyrie observes her opponents, thinking how terrifying it is that it has finally become an even match with all three of them. Meanwhile, Kujira determines that they must create an opportunity for Turu's shot, and the best way to do that is with his Shadow Stitch skill. However, he immediately identifies a problem with that plan. He identifies the complication. Ko is on her guard. He realizes she must know about his skills. The shared memories, he deduces, must have also transferred knowledge of his class abilities to her. His frustration gives way to a new line of thinking. If Ko knows his standard abilities, then something she doesn't know could take her by surprise. A single strategy comes to his mind, his unique arrow symbol combinations. Standing at the ready, Yuzui Turu confirms her preparation. With her bow drawn, she waits, needing only a clear shot at Hagane Ko, who is silhouetted in the distance. However, securing that opening proves difficult. The vanguard, Kajura, Reize, and Kazari, press their assault, but Hagane Ko moves with fluid grace, parrying their strikes. Tsukasa watches in dismay, exclaiming her shock at the difficulty of the fight. With a powerful push against Ryuziai's shield, Hagane Ko vaults backward, creating distance between herself and her attackers as she soars through the air. He watches her pull away, his expression hardening with frustration. From nearby, Reize shouts that their target has escaped their pincer formation. But this is the moment he had been waiting for. Declaring it their chance, Kajura unleashes his new technique, a combination of an arrow symbol and ignite, sending a glowing projectile hurtling towards Ko. The projectile transforms mid-air, unleashing the Shadow Stitch. Dark, sharp tendrils erupt towards Ko. Kajura knows he cannot restrain someone with her immense mana for long, but he only needs a few seconds. The shadowy bindings find their mark, piercing through Hagane Ko's sword and pinning it firmly to the ground. She looks down, her expression a mixture of shock and disbelief as she is suddenly immobilized. Before he can capitalize on the opening, Kajura shouts Tsukage's name in alarm. She has fired an incredibly fast projectile crackling with an insane amount of mana, forcing him to dodge the unexpected attack from his own ally. While he evades the blast, Reize struggles to her feet, declaring that she can still fight. Her defiance is short-lived as Hagane Ko, now free, strikes her down with a swift, brutal blow. The attack sends Reize reeling, forcing Kajura to re-engage. He realizes he must keep Ko's sword locked down. Gritting his teeth, he parries a strike, committing to a desperate close-quarters struggle. He barely manages to raise his arm as Hagane Ko closes the distance in an instant, her sword slicing through the air. The force of the impact is immense, his arm guard groaning under the pressure of the powerful strike. He stumbles back, shocked that she is also proficient in martial arts, a fact he had not anticipated. Before he can recover, Ko leaps high into the air, bathed in a brilliant aura as she prepares to bring her blade down once more. Watching her, Kajura realizes with dawning horror that he completely misjudged her mana reserves. He can't believe she broke free of his Shadow Stitch with such power, recalling that she was already this strong 5 years ago. His thoughts are cut short as Ko descends not upon him, but upon the incapacitated Reize, striking the downed paladin with a vicious blow. Kajura realizes with alarm that she's going for the killing blow. As Yuzui frantically calculates that she isn't fast or strong enough to intervene, a desperate idea forms in Kajura's mind. A single, risky way to keep Ko in check. His thoughts race back to a specific memory, triggered by the familiar setting of the Reize adventure training grounds. In the past, he lay broken on the ground as a young Tsukage wept over him. Around them, chaos erupted as others shouted for first aid, shocked by the damage he had inflicted upon the training grounds wall. Kneeling beside him, a young Kazari had questioned his methods. She asked if he had tried combining 3 traps, to which he weakly confirmed. She noted it was something he did often, like stacking 3 arrow symbols, a habit that had clearly led to this disaster. He quickly analyzes the mechanics of his trap fusion. The ability to combine traps seems to be an inherent property of the arrow symbol, making combinations with it relatively easy. However, combining 2 traps that are not the arrow symbol causes mana consumption to increase exponentially. The combination he now contemplates, arrow, slash, and flame, is a dangerous unknown. His mind flashes back to the disastrous result of his first attempt 5 years ago, a training hall utterly destroyed, with strange, dark energy coiling around the ruined pillars. He remembers his own bewildered thought at the time. And what is this? The memory continues, showing him being carried away by Tsukasa and Kazari, with Yuzui looking on. Kazari had remarked on the incredible amount of mana he had expended, while Tsukasa noted the excessive burden it placed on his body. At the time, he had resolved to hold off on trying again. But now, facing Ko's overwhelming power, he comes to a grim conclusion. She isn't someone he can defeat without taking a few risks. With his resolve solidified, Kajura slams his hand toward the ground. A complex magical circle ignites beneath it as he declares the components of his ultimate gambit. Trap set, arrow symbol, plus slash, plus flamme.